Yeah, do we have a quorum? I'm working over there.
Supervisor Rickman, you're on.
All right, just wanted to confirm that we have a quorum and can't see anything over here.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to our meeting of the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District Study Agency. We have board members participating in person at our offices in Fresno, Bakersfield, and what we call the best office, Modesto. We will do our best to facilitate a smooth meeting with public participation via Zoom and webcast. Before we begin, here are some important guidelines and general instructions for the meeting. Please silence your other communication devices such as your cell phone. During the meeting, all public participants will be placed on mute by the host. Public members will not be able to mute or unmute manually. Audio for members of the public will be unmuted once they are recognized to make a public comment. And after each agenda item, the chair will announce the public comment. The clerk will recognize any public attendee who has indicated they wish to speak. So can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, good morning. Mr. Chiesa.
I'm here.
Mr. Couch.
Here.
Mr. McCauley.
Here.
Mr. Mendez.
Here.
Mr. Pereira. Ms. Schicklien. Here. Mr. Rickman.
Here.
Mr. Robinson.
Here.
Through the chair, we have a quorum.
Here.
All right, we're going to do the
You may want to indicate so.
well, Rose is here, you can tell also.
Good morning. Yes. So for the study agency, the members of this board are the supervisors. I'll call roll for the governing board meeting and include all of our city representatives.
All right, and we'll move on to item number 3, Pledge of Allegiance. Let's have Vito. Vito, can you lead us in the pledge?
I can do it. Thank you. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
Thank you, Vito. Move on to item number 4, which is the consent calendar. Anybody from the board wishing to pull anything or make any comments? Seeing none or hearing none, we'll open up for public comment. Anybody from the public wishing to address the board on the consent?
Good morning. Are there any public comments on the consent calendar for the study agency in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Are there any public comments in Modesto on the consent calendar?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment on the consent calendar for the study agency? Seeing none and none online.
All right, thank you. We'll bring it back to the board for entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Have a second.
Yes, Supervisor Schicklien, give a second.
All right, thank you. Get a roll call, please.
Yes. Mr. Chiesa,
Aye.
Mr. Couch,
Yes.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez,
Yes.
Ms. Schicklien,
Aye.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Through the chair, motion passes.
All right, thank you. Move on to item number 5, which is the public comment. Anybody from the public wish to address the board on items that are not on the agenda?
Any public comments in Modesto on the study agency?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Any members of the public in Bakersfield that would like to comment on the study agency?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Any members of the public in Fresno like to comment on the study agency? We do have one at the podium here.
Good morning, Manuel Cunha, President of Nisei Farmers League, and also the California African American Farmers. On this item, I know that it will probably be into the board item number 11 under the plan or the SIP, but I would like to make comment that the study agency is definitely going to be a very integral part of us dealing with the 9 microgram. And that is, no matter what some people in Sacramento believe, science is the only way that we can actually do the actual attainments versus just comments and radical decisions or whatever made by certain people. But the study agency is going to be very important upon us as we move forward into the 9 microgram. So I hope that we can work like we did in 1993, 94, 95, under the guidance of Jan Sharpless, who was the chair of ARB at that time, with all of our 8 counties, including Maricopa, and the federal agencies as well. But it's very important that our study agency be fully implemented and move forward upon what type of science do we have to have to develop the dealing with the 9 microgram. I think it's extremely important. And this study agency has always done a tremendous amount of great science on the Seacoast and the SARMAP studies. He spent $65 million, and it was a collaborative effort. We all went to DC together. We went to Sacramento together, we being industries, the federal and state agencies and counties and locals, people. So I hope that we can make sure that this study agency is part of that, and we continue the strength of which you 8 counties plus Maricopa have been a part of this whole issue. So I look forward to working with you from the standpoint of agriculture and our businesses to make sure that what we're going to do with the 9 microgram is based on science versus some radical people just making innuendos with no facts or no science. So thank you.
All right, thank you for your
Are there
comment.
any other members of the public that would like to comment? Seeing none and none online.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to item number 6, governing board member comments. Any board members have anything? And none. Move on to item number 7, which is other business. Do we have any other business?
We have none.
All right, thank you. Move on to item the consent calendar. Is that a different consent from the one we just already approved?
No, those items were approved in the consent vote
Right,
on number
okay,
4.
Just wanted to double check. All right, well, if that's the case, we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting. And at 9:09, and I'll turn it over to Vito to run the governing board meeting.
Great. Thank you very much, Supervisor Rickman. Okay, I'm going to call the governing board meeting to order of the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District. The date is August 15th. The time is 9:09 a.m. So we're going to do a little different than we typically do. We're going to have after roll call, we're going to have a closed session. The board members are going to get up, run to another room. It shouldn't take too long. I don't expect it to take too long, but there's some things we need to take care of ahead of time. So if you could do a roll call, please.
Morning. Mr. Couch.
Here.
Ms. Escudia Brayton.
Here.
Ms. Lewis. Mr. McCauley.
Here.
Mr. Mendez.
Here.
Dr. Pacheco Warner. Mr. Pereira. Mr. Preciado.
Here.
Mr. Reyna.
Here.
Mr. Rickman.
Here.
Mr. Robinson.
Here.
Dr. Sheriffs.
Here.
Ms. Shucklian.
Aye.
Ms. Nguyen.
Yes. Here.
Mr. Chiesa.
Here.
Through the chair, we have a quorum.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to adjourn to closed session, and hopefully it won't take too long.
Before we go into closed session, just really quickly,
I apologize.
that's okay. We'll call, yeah, we have 2 items as noted on the agenda for closed session that we need to call for public comment.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Bakersfield that would like to comment on the closed session items?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Any members of the public in Modesto that would like to comment on closed session items?
No public comments in Modesto.
Do we have any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment on the closed session item? Seeing none and none online.
Thank you. Adjourn to closed session.
This is the new system. This is a new.
Okay. We are back from closed session. I'm going to turn it over to Council Alatori.
Thank you. In closed session, the district is recommending the approval on the consent calendar of, in addition to the employees' new contract MOU, an additional management compensation package that essentially mirrors the employees' compensation package that is up for this board's approval, in addition to some enhancements as disclosed in the board item for the management compensation package.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, so I'm going to read just the component of how to participate. I know it was read earlier, but during the meeting, all public participants will be placed on mute by the host. Public members will not be able to mute or unmute manually. Audio for members of the public will be unmuted once they are recognized to make a public comment. After each agenda item, the chair will announce public comment. The clerk will recognize any public attendees who have indicated they wish to speak. So that's how the participation works. And we are moving on to the item, which is the approval of the consent calendar, which includes the compensation, the contract for the employees. Is there any member that would like to pull any of the items? Any members in Modesto, Bakersfield? I can see heads shaking. All right. Any public comment?
Do we have any public comment on the consent calendar in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Are there any public comments in Modesto on the consent calendar?
Public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment on the consent calendar? Seeing none and none online.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Right. It's been motion seconded. Roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Couch,
Yes.
Ms. Escutia Brayton,
Aye.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez,
Yes.
Dr. Pacheco Warner,
Yes.
Mr. Pereira,
Aye.
Mr. Preciado,
Yes.
Mr. Reyna,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Sheriffs,
Yes.
Ms. Shecklian,
Aye.
Ms. Nguyen,
Aye.
Mr. Chiesa.
Aye.
Through the chair, motion passes.
Thank you very much. On to item 5. It's a public comment period. This is a time made available for comments from the public on matters within the board's jurisdiction. Agenda items 8 through 11 will each have an individual public comment period, and it is requested that comments on those items be made at that time. Attention is called to the fact that the board is prohibited by law from taking actions on matters discussed that are not on today's agenda. Do we have any public comment?
Good morning. Is there any public comment in Modesto?
No public comments in Modesto.
Any public comments in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment? Seeing none and none online.
Wow. All right. This is fantastic. Everyone knows I've got something to do this afternoon. On to item number 6, which is the STAR recognition, the service, teamwork, attitude, and respect. And Shaniqua is going to be presenting.
Good morning, Shanika Dixon, Director of Personnel. I'm happy to be here. As you're aware, recognition of employees' contributions is an essential component to the district STAR work culture. Today, we would like to formally recognize and show our appreciation for those employees who have reached a service milestone in the second quarter. We didn't have a meeting in July, so it's for those reaching a milestone in the second quarter for the service that they have at the district. So we appreciate all of your contributions. Thank you for your commitment and service to the district. Today, we have some individuals in Bakersfield as well as Fresno that will be recognized. And if they are present, we ask that you stand and remain standing until all names have been read. We are going to start off in Bakersfield today. All right. So for 5 years of service, we have Axel Garindo Martinez, Air Quality Inspector. Being recognized for 10 years of service, Aaron Scott, Permit Services Manager. And moving on, here in Fresno, being recognized for 5 years of service, Seth Lawn, Senior Network Systems Analyst. Keanu Morin, Senior Air Quality Specialist. Madison Jordan Perkins, Air Quality Analysis and Research Supervisor. She's out on leave. She just had a little one. Adrian Ortiz, Air Quality Specialist. 15 years of service, Jesse Garcia, Senior Air Quality Engineer. And in recognition for 20 years of service, Joe Avila, Air Quality Inspector. Jamie Holt, Chief Communications Officer. Congratulations to you all, and thank you for your service to the district.
Stay here for a second, Shanika. If you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to say a couple of quick things. First, I wanted to recognize all the staff for all of your service. We appreciate you so much. So just another round of applause for maybe all the staff together. Thank you. And Mr. Chair, if you wanted to make any comments first, but I wanted to circle back after perhaps any other board comments on the staff recognition.
I just always want to point out that was 70 years of recognition right there in just a few people. And you can go through an organization with 380 people and it probably is 1,000 years of service. So truly amazing. The STAR culture works. People want to stay here. People want to work here. They want to be a part of this team, which is just fantastic. Congratulations. And thank you on behalf of the board.
Just really quick, I wanted to take a few seconds here to recognize Shanika actually for her service to the district. She's taken another position, another organization here. Madera County is lucky to have her go to work with them. They're one of our partner agencies, and I think will benefit greatly, from the experiences and skills that she's brought over here. She's been a big part, as you just saw, with the STAR recognition and many other things that we've done over the many years that she's been part of our team here. She started here in 2010. She's been involved in it's been, quite the journey over the years in building up the agency that we have here and working with many different board members over the years on many different issues and supporting us as a whole. I just wanted to take a minute to thank Shanika on behalf of myself, the management team, all the staff, for all the support that you provided and friendship and so being such a big part of who we are as an agency over these years. And also wanted to just really quickly also let the board know, and we're joined here by Adriana Majevich, who has been appointed to be the interim director of personnel. She's been here for a number of years, actually served as director previously, and has stepped up and will be helping us as we recruit. We're in the process of recruitment right now for a new director, and appreciate Adriana for playing this important role and supporting us moving forward. But just big round of applause for Shanika for all her service. Really appreciate it. We're trying not to be mad at Madera County for stealing her from us.
We're
but
never
it's a
mad.
big opportunity for
We're always happy for people to move on. We're sad for ourselves, happy for yourself. And you will be such a great addition to Madera County. They're very lucky to have you. We know that. Dr. Sheriffs.
Yeah, and I would just add to that. In our private practice, we were always sorry to see staff move on, but indeed it was moving on, and we could take pride that our organization was training people, giving them skills to find other opportunities. And we trust you won't be recruiting any of the Air District staff to Madera, but that you'll be sending good people to us. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sheriffs.
Yes, I had to write something down just because I don't want to get distracted, and this is very tough. They've tried to break me several times. This is very difficult. So I'm going to read just because it makes it easier for me. It's been a great privilege just to work with such amazing people at such an incredible agency over the last 14 years. I've had the opportunity to work alongside some of the most amazing people and actually the smartest people I've ever known. So That goes for all of you, your board, as well as all of district staff, executive management and management. Your board has always demonstrated an immense amount of commitment, excellent leadership, and you truly care about the work that's being done to improve the quality of life in the Valley, each and every one of you. And this continues to be validated through your dedication time and time again. I think in the last, 9 or 10 years since I've been director, 9 years maybe, I've only missed one governing board meeting. So I've had the opportunity to witness the great work that you all do that help us be great here at the district. And the amount of pride in the STAR principles and fostering a culture of excellence, which has been led by Samir, is only possible through your leadership. So I just want to thank you for that and all that you do, all that you're going to continue to do here at the district for the Valley, as well as district staff. Samir and Morgan, just thank you for your endless support, exceptional leadership, and just trusting me in the position as a director of personnel with all that you do and with district staff. I hope to take with me the many attributes of STAR that I've possessed and all the things that I've learned here at the district to make my mark in my new journey with the County of Madera. And I'll be seeing a lot of Mr. Supervisor McCauley while I'm there. So thank you. I have no doubt that the district is going to continue to advance its mission of improving the quality of life for all Valley residents and placing employees' well-being at the forefront in everything that we do. And so that really puts me at ease because all of you, as well as Samir and the rest of the executive team, care about all the work that we do, district staff. And so I know that whoever is in this place is going to do great and the district is continue to be great. And from afar, I will be cheering you on. Thank you so much.
Before you leave, I always ask the question when someone's leaving, and it's a simple question, but who's your favorite board member? And before you answer, Supervisor McCauley would be a good answer. I'm just kidding. Thank you so much.
I'll text whoever that is.
All right.
Said that, they said, well, it ain't you.
We know it isn't me. All right. We're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to item 7, report on the District Citizens Advisory Committee activities. Welcome in.
Good morning, Manuel Cunha, member of the CAC. Before you in your packets, Mr. Chairman and board and staff and Samir is the items that we went through. I'll make it fast because of your time. I think the major items, of course, was the discussion of the plan, which you'll be talking about, the SIP that was submitted to A or B. Secondly is the waiver request by the CAC to endorse the extension for the year. Was an item that the board of CAC, environmentalists, the city, and the business and ag, everybody unanimously agreed to support that letter and getting it right away to EPA. The item that was an item that took most of the board. And again, I want to thank the indulgence of the entire staff and Samir and the board chairman of the CAC by having ARB have an actual person appear in Fresno on the truck issue, the clean fleets issue that we've had a lot of discussion and no answers, and which we finally did get somebody. Again, in the comments, I think was the communications between ARB permits department and DMV and enforcement. I think there's where the discussion is not done yet. But again, I want to thank Samir and everybody for allowing that. It took about an hour and a half, probably hour, to discuss all of the issues around the dredge trucks, the problems we're having and the issues we're having. And the young man was very respectful and very knowledgeable in some of the areas, but many of the areas he could not touch because, again, it's whose departments is controlling. So I think the door is open and we're looking forward to continue that dialogue from the CAC side. A lot of comments were made and asked questions by the CAC members on this item, which was incredible. When I say for a particular item of such magnitude. So again, everything is before you, 617 items. I won't take much time, but if there's any questions, I'd be very happy to try to answer or,
Any questions for Manuel? Seeing none, appreciate the report.
And again, congratulations to all the stars, especially the 20-year young lady over there that got 20 years. But again, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Manuel. Okay, on to item 8, accept and appropriate 1.2 million and some change in additional Federal Diesel Emissions Reduction Act funding for heavy-duty truck replacement.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Todd DeYoung, your Director of Grants and Incentives at the Air District. So for the past 30 years, Valley businesses have been subject to the most stringent air quality regulations in the entire nation. There we go. Through that time, billions of dollars have been invested by Valley businesses to comply with increasingly stringent and rigorous regulatory requirements. What we've found over these past 30 years is that regulations alone are not enough to bring the Valley into attainment with these stringent air quality attainment strategies. And what we found is that incentives have been playing an increasingly critical role in addressing our air quality challenges, particularly with mobile sources, which lie outside of the district's regulatory authority, but account for more than 85% of the total NOx emissions in the Valley. So in order to implement a successful incentive-based strategy, significant resources and funding are necessary. So your board throughout this time has directed the development of several robust and effective incentive programs that have really been designed to address the needs of Valley residents and stakeholders. We've worked closely over the years with Valley partners to successfully advocate and compete for new clean air funding. And through that, we've gained a reputation for administering successful and effective incentive programs, and we're consistently praised for our efficiency and fiscal accountability. And this has really been a key factor in our ability to bring increased funding and bring new funding to the Valley throughout this time. Which brings us to this most recent action. So back in May of 2021, the district was awarded about $2.8 million in federal funding under EPA's DERA program, or Diesel Emission Reduction Act program. This is a highly competitive nationwide program. We're happy to say that this particular project was the #1 ranked proposal in EPA Region 9 and received funding commensurate with that ranking. It was awarded to support the replacement of in-use heavy-duty diesel trucks with zero or near zero emission trucks. EPA recently notified us about a month ago that an additional $1.2 million was available to support the replacements of this grant and support the replacement of trucks under this grant. So that would bring the total award for this grant up to $4 million, which was the maximum available at the time. So per previous board direction, we did bring this before your board back in 2021. And in that process, it was determined that we would be utilizing the district's existing truck replacement program guidelines to administer this federal funding. The truck replacement program as a whole has successfully obligated over $318 million to replace more than 6,300 Valley-based trucks. This has resulted in the reduction of more than 30,500 tons of NOx and PM. The initial DERA award of $2.8 million has actually been fully obligated. In fact, we were within weeks of submitting our closeout report for this grant, but we'll happily leave it open for some additional time to accommodate this additional fund. We've successfully obligated funding to replace 26 Class 7 and 8 trucks with new zero and near zero emission truck technology through the initial grant award. So this additional funding, this additional 1.2 million will help fund the replacement of about 5 additional trucks. Again, these are Class 7 and Class 8 trucks with new zero or near zero emission trucks. Combined with the small district match of about $137,000, excuse me, this will provide up to about 45% of the total cost, which is the maximum amount that you can award under these EPA grants. The truck owner's cost share is about 55% or about 1.375 million. The lifetime reductions with this new funding are about 2.7 tons of NOx and PM. And then combined with the additional grant award, the total grant is expected to result in about 19 tons of NOx and PM reductions over the lifetime of the grant. So with that, the recommendations are before you are to accept and appropriate the 1.2 million and approve the budget resolution. With that, I'd be happy to bring it back to your board and take any questions.
Any questions for Todd? Dr. Pacheco Warner.
Thank you. Thank you, Todd. For these trucks, is there a particular prioritization that's going to happen for the awards, or is it first come, first serve?
It's generally first come, first serve. They would be chosen from our existing backlog of truck projects within our truck replacement program. It would just be the next available trucks that qualify for this funding.
You, Dr. Sheriffs.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to note that I had the opportunity to stop by the truck show at Peterbilt. I think it was last week. And it was great to see the technological progress in those trucks. And of course, that's part of the point of the incentives. One, it's obviously to help industry make these adjustments and moves that we have to see to get to our air quality and climate goals. So a good incentive program helps drive that technology. And it was great to see the interest at that show and the presence of the Air District and CARB, particularly helping people figure out how to use the incentive programs and other ways to utilize the technology. So thank you for that.
Member Escutia Braden.
Yes, thank you very much. I seem to recall that earlier this year that there was going to be a heavy amount of opportunity with federal funding in the hydrogen arena. I was looking forward to getting more information about this and wondering, has that become available? Is that included in some manner in this appropriation? And if not, why not? And what we might expect in that area?
I'll take that question, Todd, add or correct to anything I may say, but because there's a couple of facets to it. So first of all, this funding, the truck replacement program absolutely would be able to fund hydrogen trucks if there were to be applications that came in. That's still a bit challenging on the vehicle side. There really isn't a lot of product available, and there certainly isn't really infrastructure available yet. And that's kind of the second point that I want to make, which is that we're watching very closely and are engaging with technology providers, with Arches, which is the you may recall is the state coalition that just recently signed an agreement, a funding agreement with the federal government for $1.2 billion to support the build out of infrastructure in the state of California for hydrogen, with the focus on the freight sector. We're actually meeting with them here shortly to get a debrief on what the first tranche of projects might look like, and are intending on trying to bring more information to the board. There's a couple of opportunities, I think, in the near future where we can kind of report out on this again, as we have been last year in Modesto at the study session. So we're very interested in supporting those transitions, and I think there are some funding opportunities. A lot has to happen, I think, both on the vehicle side and the infrastructure side, and there is development that's happening. I think a lot of the focus right now is on electric trucks, just simply because some of those vehicles are available now, and the infrastructure is sort of being built out here and there, although there's major issues with that as well. But hydrogen is definitely something that we're pursuing, and we'll be coming back with more information on that. So just stay tuned for that. And I just wanted to answer the first question as well, that it is eligible under the grant, this grant. So.
Buddy?
Yes. No, that's all right. I'm buddy.
Supervisor
Yeah.
Miller.
Hey, you mentioned backlog. What is the backlog on truck replacement?
It's not huge right now. It is a little bit challenging right now with the landscape, with the regulations that are being implemented right now. There's a lot of confusion out there with the trucking companies and what they can apply for and what their responsibilities are under these regulations. And that has limited our ability to fund a lot of these trucks, but we are aggressively pursuing opportunities. We are engaging with fleets, we're engaging with dealerships in the valley to really bring those applications in and bring those opportunities to the district and then show them, hey, we do have funding available. We can make this work. Each one individually, when you're working with a fleet, it's a very individualized calculation. You have to look at their compliance schedule with the new regulations, find out where those opportunities are and where they lie within those regulatory, that framework to provide those incentives. So it is a little bit of a challenge right now, but we are seeing significant interest and we're engaging with a lot of trucking fleets right now who are interested.
Okay, so not our red tape, but the red tape out there is very extensive.
It's a challenge.
That's your comment.
Yeah. Yes.
Something tells me you knew the answer to that question when you were asked. I think you'd be wrong, but Member Robinson.
I just had a question. I used to be in the furniture business. How are they doing with the lifetime of the batteries now? For example, with standard combustible engine, it takes 2 or 3 days to cross the United States. How long are they getting out of the batteries these days for hours?
That's a good question. What we've seen so far in the implementation on the heavy duty side is that it's really limited to sort of the milk runs, the shorter regional trips. We're not seeing a lot of these trucks being used for cross country. I don't think the infrastructure is there, and I just don't think it makes a lot of sense for these trucking companies that are going these long distances. So what we've seen in the class 7 and 8 realm is really kind of the regional valley-based trips. They may go to Southern California or up into the Bay Area, but they're staying fairly localized. It's about maybe 150-mile range is kind of what we're seeing in trucks right now on the heavy duty side. And that's where we're really hoping that hydrogen, as it matures, there's a promise of a much longer range and much, faster fueling. And we think that that's going to really take a lot of that, the longer range truck traffic. But what we're seeing right now is about 150 miles. It's those milk runs, return to base, or some opportunity charging along the way. Yeah, of course.
Right. Thank you. I see no other questions from board members, so we'll go out for public comment.
Are there any public comments in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Any public comments in Modesto?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public here in Fresno that would like to comment on this? I have one coming up to the podium.
Good morning, Manuel Cunha, Mr. Chairman, Samir and staff, and board members. On this item, there's some information that we received on Tuesday at a meeting at a company. We're getting the information. We're going to share it with you, Todd. And the trucking company. But the question we had at Golden State Peterbilt that Dr. Sheriff's attended, the electric truck there, the basic model, was $498,000. That was Golden State's price for their trucks for Peterbilt of an electric. As of Tuesday, we heard that the high end of electric trucks is $990,000. An electric truck was presented to a lot of people, and even Mayor Persado attended that meeting. The question was that we've asked ARB. And Dr. Pacheco, this is an extremely question that, just like everything else they've done on this electrification, the TRUs, they're coming out with a regulation on TRUs, the refrigeration units. As we talked to Peterbilt, that the TRUs that they're trying to do electrification have to plug into the truck battery. And doing that, from 150 miles to go 70 miles. That's their max. They came out, some discussion, Dr. Pacheco, with some of the staff, was to put a battery on the TRU container. Totally unfunctionable, 4,500 pounds. Where do you put that unit plus the refrigeration unit that has to cool the vehicle, the container? None of that information has been revealed at all by the ARB staff that's working on this regulation at all. This came from the manufacturer of trucks. Nobody has said that now the electric truck can only go 70 miles if it plugs into the unit. So that means you have to have now a separate generator, which would run on diesel if you're going to do that. There are no trucks going across you out of California electric at all. But we do have a trade agreement discussion with Mexico and Canada. There may be what they call a tariff violation of telling Mexico that they can't bring in their product into California because it's a tier 3 truck. Has to be tier 4s. So that never was discussed in the trade agreements at all. So now our farmers may get hit with the tariff agreement if we take stuff into Mexico. They're going to figure out, or Canada. Again, no one did their homework on this issue. So there's 1,600,000 total trucks registered DMV. 323,000 were not licensed in 24 of January tier 3s, but tier 4s. So we have a total electrics in the Port of Oakland, 18,000 trucks. They have 338 trucks electric in the Port of LA and Long Beach. We were there Tuesday, we saw the trucks. It was like a trains. Oakland has 38 out of 3,000 trucks, only 38 electrics. So again, thank you for the overtime, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Any further comments in Fresno? Seeing none and none online.
Okay, Dr. Pacheco Warner.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to clarify some things for the rest of the board on the TRU aspect. So right now, CARB is looking into regulation. They just finished a period where they were asking for information from industry in terms of what's feasible and what's not. So it's very much very early in the concept making. And I'm glad that folks locally are engaged so that that process can be as practical as possible. But I just wanted to clarify that for everybody in terms of where that's actually at.
Thank you very much.
Well, we need a motion to approve.
We do need a motion.
Second.
And a second. Member Preciado.
Okay, I'll call for a roll. Mr. Couch. Looks like he stepped away. Ms. Escutia Brayton,
Aye.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez,
Yes.
Dr. Pacheco Warner,
Yes.
Mr. Pereira,
Aye.
Mr. Preciado,
Yes.
Mr. Reyna,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Sheriffs,
Yes.
Ms. Shecklian,
Aye.
Ms. Nguyen,
Aye.
Mr. Chiesa,
Aye.
through the chair, motion passes.
Thank you very much. On to item 9, approve $500,000 in funding for Stockton Bike Lane Improvement Project. Authorize the agreement with Valley Clean Air Now. Let's see, and Jessica.
Yes. I'm going to scoot a little away from, I'm feeling mostly fine, but want to keep everyone healthy. So yes, Jessica Olson, the Director of Community Strategies and Resources. And I'm here today before your board to talk about a couple of really great emission reduction plan opportunities to implement in our AB 617 communities. So as a reminder, your board has really placed a top priority on providing meaningful community engagement across the Valley on the district's air quality strategies. In fact, in 2007, your board adopted the district's environmental justice strategy, and through that, established the district's environmental justice advisory group. And then more recently, that's really taken the form, community engagement has taken the form of AB or Assembly Bill 617, the Community Air Protection Program. We've invested a lot of additional community-focused resources to support these local engagement efforts. And the board established environmental justice and community engagement priorities have really allowed us to continue helping communities that are disproportionately impacted by economic and environmental inequities. As a reminder, we do have 4 Valley communities that were selected by CARB for focused AB 617 resources under the Community Air Protection Program. That is South Central Fresno and Shafter. They were selected in year 1. Stockton was selected in year 2, and Arvin Lamont was selected in year 3. Each one of them has a community emissions reductions program that were not only approved by your board, but approved by CARB's board. And each one of those programs has a variety of different measures that are emissions reduction or exposure measures in order to reduce emissions and improve public health in these communities. And so today I'm here before you for a couple of different measures, one that's in one particular community and one that's actually across all 4 of our communities. The first is to approve up to $500,000 that was already allocated in the Community Emissions Reduction Program in Stockton to do a bike lane project. And the next is to partner with Valley Clean Air Now, or Valley CAN, for implementing our lawnmower exchange program events. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that means. And then, of course, to authorize board chair to execute necessary agreements to do both of those things. So that first recommendation, the Stockton Bike Lane Improvements Measure, this is actually a measure. There's a project plan, as we've talked about many times before. In order to spend the community air protection funding, we have to have approval from CARB. We actually worked with CARB to get this type of project plan included in their cap incentives guidelines that were revised in April. So this is already an approved project type. We have $500,000 that is allocated in the SERP, and the proposed project title is long, but it is very descriptive: Stockton Safe Routes to School Safety and Connectivity Improvements Project. We worked really, really closely with the community steering committee that's made up of residents and businesses and agencies, including the city of Stockton, to identify opportunities to spend this $500,000. The proposed project, as you'll see on the map on the next slide or a couple slides from now, will construct bike lanes, install missing sidewalk curb ramps and safety features like flashing beacons, and really increase the safety and accessibility for the community. As a reminder, bike lane improvements really have a variety of different benefits. I just talked a little bit about safety, but of course, for air quality, emissions reduction purposes, it does reduce the vehicle miles traveled. The idea, right, that more folks take active transportation like bikes and don't drive their cars. And because of that, there is an estimated emissions reductions over the lifetime of the project of 3.7 tons of NOx, PM, and VOCs that will be reduced. And then, of course, as mentioned, increased safety, improved accessibility. There are just a variety of co-benefits to funding a project like this. So here on the left-hand side, you can see this is a map of the proposed project. Hopefully you can see the bright green is actually all of the bike lanes that will be constructed. It's a pretty long route. And like I mentioned earlier, we'll connect a variety of schools in the boundary. That pink overlay, that is our AB 617 boundary. So you can see there is a little bit that goes outside of the boundary. And I'll describe here in a moment that we're not, there's a lot of cost share with the city of Stockton to conduct this project. So the lead agency, as mentioned, is the city. The total project for all of those bike lanes that you see here in this picture will cost about $3 million. And the district is coming forward through the SERP with the full funding amount that's in the SERP allocation, which is $500,000. So that's about 16% that we'll cover, with the remaining 84% coming as a cost share from the city. The other item that I'm here today to discuss is what's sort of now a really almost famous, I think a few of you have been there with us, our residential lawnmower exchange events. Gas-powered lawn care equipment has really been a source of concern in our communities for a long time. Folks are really interested in not only, of course, reducing air pollution, but it's really a very localized source of air pollution, and folks, are behind the mower breathing in those fumes. And so we've worked really closely with the community through the SERP to allocate funding to exchange lawnmowers through our typical program, which allows folks to go off and buy their own electric lawnmower, just go to a dismantler, drop off their old lawnmower, and have a new electric lawnmower at home. However, we found that sometimes the most efficient way to do it was to host events. We were hosting events where folks it was sort of like a little drive-through. They could drive up, drop off their old lawnmower, drive to the next little station, have, I think that's Samir loading it in the back of the car. And then, maybe even have a moment, kind of a touch point for some outreach and learn about other programs, and then drive off. And it was a very efficient process. But as we continue to find that this is very popular, it really does require significant staff time, resources to plan, organize, approve, and then, of course, on top of that, host the event itself. And so with that, our proposed action is to enter into an agreement with someone I think you are all very familiar with, Valley Clean Air Now. We do have a lot of additional, or several, I should say, at this point, additional lawnmower exchange events planned in each of the communities. And so we know we need to do more. And since 2011, we have been partnering with Valley Can or Valley Clean Air now to do our award-winning tune and tune-up vehicle repair program. And the program, as I just described, the lawnmower exchange event program kind of operates the same. It's a one-stop shop where folks come and get their vehicles checked out and get the voucher for repairs. And so we wanted to really leverage that unique experience and maybe even leverage those events themselves, partner with Valley Can to host these additional planned lawnmower exchange events in all 4 of our 617 communities coming up. So with that, those are the recommendations here before you today, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Exciting stuff. Again, any questions for staff? Member Robinson?
I was shocked at the figure that 12 of the new vehicles equal the pollution of 1 lawnmower. That was just a highlight for me, so.
That's Dr. Sheriffs.
Thank you. Love bike lanes, love bikes, love the collaboration that went into that project and responding to the community preferences. 2 questions. 1, where are the schools on the map? Yeah. And the second question, how do we calculate the emission reductions by doing a project like bike lanes?
That's a great question. We have several maps and I could have included one with schools. So we are aware where the schools are. So that's a great question. We can definitely, if folks are interested.
How many schools are in that?
In the whole boundary, there's about 30 schools.
30 schools.
On that side of I don't have that exact figure, but the entire boundary, we work with about 30 schools. They are all part of the Stockton Unified School District.
Right.
To your second question, which was how do we calculate the emissions reductions?
Yeah.
Typically, most of those emissions reductions, especially if it's just installing bike lanes, although like I mentioned, there are some curb, gutter, sidewalk installations, so maybe some dust reducsions. It's typically done by doing vehicle counts and seeing how much traffic is operating on that area. There's I don't even know the term, the full definition. CMAQ is a way that I think county folks are pretty familiar. When you go and get funding for these types of projects, there's actually a standard calculation that's done. And usually it's input, what are the counts of traffic? What other things are you doing, like installing curb, gutter, sidewalk? What other modes of transportation are available? And through that, they're able to calculate the emissions reductions benefit.
Yeah, and one of my reasons about asking for the schools is obviously the localization of air quality impacts, but also my fantasy, which may or may not be true. If we put in these bike lanes, proximity to schools, kids are using active mobility for getting to school rather than, with all due respect, parents driving their cars and idling and dropping them off.
Member Preciado.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So these are very good projects reducing pollution, but the 2 questions that I have is regarding these communities, for communities, 617 communities. This funding is additional for the funding they already received, correct? Or is it part of the same funding?
All of these were included in the Community Emissions Reduction Program allocations already.
Okay. And the second question is how other communities doing regarding this program is also available for other communities outside of the 617. How's the funding doing there? Is there's a waiting list or is still enough funding available for those other communities?
A stab at that one and then just add to it if you have other thoughts. So this is Samir, there's a couple different types of projects here. You got the bike lane type project. You've got the lawnmower projects. Each of those, there are other resources that are available valley-wide to help with those things. We do support bike lane infrastructure, for example, throughout the valley. I don't have a count right now of how many projects there are, but we were just talking to a rural community just a couple of days ago about another project that they may have that we're interested in supporting through allocations that the board makes through the budgeting process. in our incentive program spending plan. So there are some funds available for that. I think the trade-in program for the lawnmowers, we're looking at this as a really interesting pilot also, because I think in the future, what we're going to hope to bring back to the board is going to be with the lessons that we're learning through the already board approved 617 allocations. To clarify that again, basically there's no new funding being recommended here. We do have a very strong valley-wide event-based model through Tune and Tune Up that if we were able to really kind of fine-tune the approach that we're recommending here with Valley Can, which would be our first sort of foray into having, some help in really taking that kind of effort to the next level, that could actually inform, is there an opportunity maybe at these Tune and Tune Up events to, for example, add that component? As you know, those events go throughout the valley. They go into rural communities. They go into different types of communities. So I think I'll take that also as sort of an item to keep an eye on, in terms of, how do we try to take that event based and make it something that we could actually do more valley wide. Now, this particular program is focused on those 4 communities. This is a measure that the board already approved into these plans. So I do think that there's going to be opportunities for, as we've seen, by the way, many times with some of the newer things that we tried in these, we actually take those lessons learned and apply them when we can more broadly to all valley communities. So that's something that we'll definitely be looking at in the future.
Very much. Dr. Pacheco Warner.
Yeah, just to follow up on Mayor Preciado's comment, I believe there is a new cycle of community air grants opening up with CARB, which this bill doesn't only provide funding for those selected communities, but also through this grant program for any community in California that's heavily impacted by pollution. And so I wonder if there's an opportunity I'm not like totally intimately familiar with the guidelines, but to apply for some of these other communities that you may be interested in, partnering with a local CBO or whoever to apply for some of that funding to do some of this very same programming. I think that could be very competitive if the guidelines apply, allow for it, given that this has already been shown to be a very successful program. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, we'll go out to public comment.
Thank you. Are there any public comments in Modesto?
Public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public in Bakersfield that would like to comment?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Anybody in Fresno like to comment on this item? Seeing none online, we do have one online comment. Hector Oliveras.
Welcome, Hector.
Hello, good morning. So my name is Hector Olivares, and I am the program manager for Catholic Charities Diocese of Stockton for the Environmental Justice Program. And our work involves, of course, environmental justice, combating climate change, extreme weather, and community sustainability and equity. So on behalf of the Diocese of Stockton, the Catholic Church, I would like to show my support for this item. And as a member of Stockton's AB 617 steering committee, we have planned and agreed as a committee that providing bike lanes for our community in South Stockton is integral to our overall CERT plan. Reducing vehicle travel miles and providing a safe route that bicycle riders can share the road with vehicles overall improves safety and the quality of life for residents. These funds will also be leveraged, as mentioned, by the City of Stockton with other grants to overall increase the resources available to meet the city's master bike plan. Also, it was mentioned about schools and how the bike lanes intersect with schools. And I can tell you personally, because I'm from that community, that the bike lanes go right in front of Edison High School, the largest high school in South Stockton, and also McKinley Elementary School. So the bike lanes directly lead to those schools, which overall will improve safety for students going to and from school. The second part is the lawnmower replacement work, right? On May 23rd, the lawnmower exchange event was held in Stockton and it was extremely successful, right? There was 155 lawnmowers exchanged. And residents actually had to be turned away because they ran out of lawnmowers and they had to be directed to the Valley Air website. And this shows that the desire for residents to do their part in moving away from their, old and dirty gas-powered equipment to something better for the environment and the community. So I would definitely like to see more events and exchanges like this available for the community. So on behalf of Catholic Charities of Stockton and on behalf of the AB 617 committee in Stockton, I am in full support of allocating these funds as stated in item 9. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you. We have another online comment. Evan Marcello.
Welcome, Evan.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Good morning, San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District Governing Board and district staff. I'm Evan Marcello, Engineering Services Manager for the City of Stockton Public Works. On behalf of the City of Stockton Public Works Department, I'd like to extend our sincere gratitude for your partnership and support. The AB 617 funds provided through the Community Air Protection Program will be instrumental in advancing our shared goals of creating safer, bikeable, walkable, healthier, and more sustainable communities. The Stockton Safe Route to School and Connectivity Improvement Project, our project, is a direct reflection of these goals. This project will connect vital bike lanes near several elementary, middle school, and high school within the AB 617 zone of our community, significantly enhancing safety and promoting active modes of transportation across the region. The funding provided through this CARB-approved Stockton SURF will be leveraged alongside City of Stockton funds to make crucial infrastructure improvements. These improvements include the construction of new bike lanes, installation of missing sidewalk, curb ramps, addition of key safety features like high visibility crosswalk with flashing beacons. As I said earlier, in total, this project represents an estimated investment of a little over $3 million in our community, with Stockton SURF allocation covering about 500 to be exact, 500,000 to be exact, or 16% of total costs. This partnership exemplifies how collaborative efforts can result in substantial community benefits. Moreover, the Community Steering Committee, along with the district and City of Stockton staff, work extensively to understand and support this project, ensuring that it meets the needs and priorities of our residents. The anticipated impact of the Stockton Safe Route to School Safety and Connectivity Improvement Project is very significant, with an estimated reduction of 3.73 tons of transportation emissions over the project's life. This is not just an investment to an infrastructure, but an investment in the health and well-being of our community. I'd like to thank AB 617 Stockton Committee for their diligent work. Also, the Valley District staff, Jessica Olsen, Stephanie Eng, Rocio Calderon, and the team. Once again, thank you for your support and partnership. We look forward to continuing to work together to make Stockton a safer, more connected, and environmentally friendly city. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
There are no further online comments.
Okay, bring it back to the board.
Well, I would like to move approval, and I also want to say I like titles that are descriptive, accurate, and clunky.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second. Chuck, man.
All right, roll call, Mr. Couch,
Yes.
Ms. Escutia Brayton,
Aye.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez,
Yes.
Dr. Pacheco Warner,
Yes.
Mr. Pereira,
Aye.
Mr. Preciado,
Yes.
Mr. Reyna,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Sheriffs,
Yes.
Ms. Shecklian,
Aye.
Ms. Nguyen,
Yes.
Mr. Chiesa.
Aye.
Through the chair, motion passes.
Thank you very much. On to item 10, an update on the 2024 wildfire prevention and response efforts. Jamie and John.
All
All right, thank you, Chair, members of the board. I'm John Klassen, Director of Air Quality Science, joined by Jamie Holt, Chief Communications Officer. And I'll get this presentation started this morning. So just a little bit of background. As we know, wildfires have an enormous amount of emissions that can exceed our normal industrial and mobile source emissions here in the valley. It can overwhelm all of our control measures. They lead to both high levels of particulate matter and ozone, because fires also produce ozone precursors of NOx and VOC. A lot of issues have driven the wildfire challenges in the recent years: fire suppression policies in the past, widespread drought-driven tree mortality, changing climate conditions, hotter temperatures, drier materials have led to really intense wildfire seasons. We continue to make efforts here to support everywhere we can local, state, and federal fuel reduction efforts across the region, and we do a lot of public outreach that Jamie will go over in a few slides. The wildfire challenges that we have here also impact air quality planning that we do here for the San Joaquin Valley. Wildfire smoke significantly impacts air quality in the western states. Mostly this continues to grow over time. Like I mentioned, this is not only a particulate matter planning challenge, but ozone as well, because these fires can help spike ozone on the valley floor as well. Recent EPA analysis, when they set up the new annual standard of 9 micrograms in their documentation, they noted that they estimate about 44% of the PM 2.5 emissions across the nation come from wildfires and prescribed fires. That's pretty significant, that almost half of all the particulate matter PM 2.5 in the nation is coming from wildfires at this point. As a response to this, EPA continues to evolve what's called exceptional events in their policies, how air quality planners can handle these types of events, to document them and to not include them in different attainment calculations and planning purposes. So EPA continues to look at this closely. Ongoing health research continues to show the effects of exposure to wildfire smoke. Recent research is also showing that exposure to wildfire smoke PM 2.5 is much worse than other types of PM 2.5. In addition, some recent research is showing that wildfire smoke emissions can increase the risk of dementia compared to other types of PM 2.5. So this is a growing area of research. We continue to track this year by year. Maybe you've seen this before, but this shows the total number of acres burned per year across California. So if you go all the way back in time to 2005, you can see this changing year to year as weather conditions and drought issues come up year to year. You can see this gradually increase from 2016 forward. 2019 was a lower year, but then you see those two record-breaking years in 2020 and 2021 for California. The last couple of years have been relatively low, but you can see on the far right-hand side in the year 2024, year to date, we've already well surpassed what happened all of 22 and 23. We're about over 800,000 acres burned across the state right now. And I wanted to note too, this is right in the middle of wildfire season. This is not the end of it. Oftentimes wildfire season can go into October, November. It really has the opportunity to keep going until there's a big season-ending storm dropping a lot of rain and snow across the state. So we're expecting this number to continue to creep up in the coming months until that big storm comes through. We also track this. This is another report that CAL FIRE puts out where they show what's happening this year for the fire season versus the previous year to date. So you can see in that red box there, for this year in 2024, we've had just over 5,000 fires across the state. Last year to date was about 4,200. So the number of fires has been more. And then of course, the number of acres, you can see clearly that the number of acres burned across the state is a lot more than what we saw last year at this point in time. So it's been a very active first half of the fire season compared to last year. And you can even see compared to the 5-year average at the bottom of the table, we were well above what we've seen even over the past 5 years on average for this point in time. Another report we closely track is the top 20 largest wildfires in state history. You can see in this table here that there's now a new fire in the top 20. That's the Park Fire, which I'll talk a bit more about. That has been happening this summer. It's now the 4th largest in state history at about 430,000 acres at this time. And now when you look at this report, we've been reporting on how many of the top 20 have been from the last few years. Now 10 of the top 20, so half of the top 20 largest fires in state history have occurred since the year 2020, which is really just evidence of the intensity and destructive nature of fires in recent years. So just a few notes on the Park Fire. I'm sure you've heard a bit about this fire. This is the largest fire So far this year, this started July 24th. It's up in Northern California near Chico, in the counties of Butte, Plumas, Shasta, and Tehama. And this fire, after it started, it grew by about 350,000 acres in just a 3-day period. And this is really driven by high temperatures, high winds up in the area. When this fire first started, that really drove that fire up into the mountain areas just north of Chico. And this wildfire has impacted air quality across Northern California. It's been blowing over to Nevada. A lot of Western states have been impacted by this. And this is a satellite image from July 25th, just showing the large size of this fire and how much smoke is being produced and pushed off to different areas of the West. And okay, great, this is working. So this is a video just showing the movement of this fire for the first few days. You can see it expanding up into the mountains, those high winds pushing that fire line up into the mountains, and you see all the smoke and the emissions pushing off to parts of Northern California and some of the Western states these first few days. That was about a 2-day period for that image, and I think we'll pull up the presentation again. So there have also been a number of fires that have impacted us locally as well, not just the Park Fire up in Northern California, but there have been a number of fires that we show in this table on this map here that have been in the Sierra Nevada, the Coastal Range, Southern California. These are more of the larger fires that have impacted us across the areas. And some of these are still active, still producing smoke that have been impacting us throughout the summer. And this is just an example of a satellite image on the morning of July 31st. You can see a lot of the haze from the Park Fire up north, a number of fires in the Sierra Nevada, causing a lot of elevated PM 2.5 in the valley as well. And lastly, before I pass it off, just wanted to note that we continue to work closely with land management agencies who conduct fuel reduction projects throughout the area. We attend a daily call with wildfire and prescribed burn agencies doing this type of work to reduce fuel. They report on wildfire activity, and we can report on air quality and meteorology that we're seeing. We also hosted our annual cooperators meeting in April of this year, where a lot of the agencies come and they tell us about their logistical plans for this next year for fuel reduction projects. We can give them feedback on how we operate our program. It's a really good meeting that we have each year. We also regularly attend various interagency local fire safe council meetings when we're invited to be there to give updates on our program, how we operate it. When wildfires do happen and they impact local communities, we also have a collection of temporary PM 2.5 monitors that we can help get out to those communities to help them understand what's happening locally with their air quality. And then we're also implementing the MOU with CAL FIRE to simplify the hazard reduction burning permitting process that we talked about with your board at the study session a few months ago. So that's in process and working well. So with that, I'll pass to Jamie to give us more background on our outreach.
Good morning. Our number one priority when we're talking about really all types of burning is communicating clearly, accurately, and quickly with the public. This is just an example of a new brochure that we put together to really kind of help folks understand that not all wood burning is horrible. Some of it, when you're talking about hazard burn reduction and even prescribed burning, is actually something that we monitor very closely. And we actually want to see happen in the valley to protect ourselves from those catastrophic wildfires. Then we talk a little bit about burning trash and residential wood burning and open ag burning, just to let folks understand that this is a very complex issue and they can easily see kind of what they want to do and where it might fall into this matrix. We communicate with everyone on a regular basis, and depending on the day, we might be communicating with thousands of people. We work closely with our public health officers and directors. We actually held our annual seasonal kickoff meeting in July. That's a Zoom meeting with public health officers and directors. We're part of the Central California Public Health Consortium, which is the 8+ Tuolumne and Mariposa counties in the Central Valley, talking about kind of the key public health issues. And we make sure that we inform that group about some of the things going on, not just wildfires, but a lot of the air quality issues. We're communicating daily in English and Spanish to our local media. Valley schools, it's back to school season, and we're sending out email blasts to them. We're going to be at some of the school sites in the mornings during drop off, making sure that we're communicating clearly and simply to parents, students, educators, administrators about some of the air quality challenges that we have this type of year, many of which are tied to wildfires. And then, of course, social media, lots of phone calls, lots of emails, and then events throughout the valley. Social media is one of the best ways to reach people. These are just an example of 3 recent posts that we've had. We often, while we no longer need to make the text bilingual, you can actually set up your social media posts to, translate that into another language. We do need to make our graphics bilingual. So you'll see a couple instances here when we do have these wildfire smoke impacts. And that first one, that graphic down in the bottom is actually bilingual. So even though the text above will get automatically translated, we are sensitive to the fact that maybe not everyone would be able to read all of the language in our graphics. So we're doing more and more of that. We also like to share other people, and in this case, it's the National Weather Service, things that they might be putting out about elevated wildfire danger. I mentioned this many times. There are a lot of tools out there for folks to better understand air quality data. If you look back 15 years ago when we began to develop our app, we were the only show in town. We're not so much anymore. And our message to the public is what's going to work for you. Whatever's going to work for you, we're going to support. We want it to be accurate. We want it to be timely. We want it to give you good protective health information. But whatever folks are willing to check on a regular basis, we're on board with. If they ask us where to go during wildfire, we tell them to go to the EPA's fire and smoke map. That pulls information from our monitors. It pulls information from those temporary monitors that John mentioned that we deploy with our land managers, maybe up at the site of the fire, and a few of those citizen science personal air monitors that are providing really data that seems to be accurate and consistent over time. We have a great wildfire prevention and response page. We also have a wildfire prevention and response team that meets every other week. We get together, we're constantly adding to this page. We're constantly making sure that the wildfires, and this was taken last week, so I think actually one of those fires has come off. We're constantly making sure that it's accurate, that we have good information that the public can access in this kind of one-stop shop, valleyair.org/wildfires. This is our infographic. We're now trying to do more, not only in English and Spanish, but bringing in Hmong and Punjabi. Just an easy piece that we pass out. One example is when we're at school is those early mornings during that back to school window. This is brand new. It's a wildfire brochure, and it incorporates a couple things that I'm going to talk about in just a minute. This is kind of still a draft, so you're getting a first look, but we will be translating this into multiple languages once we have a final review on it and make sure our QR code works right and that everything's up to date. 2 grant programs I want to talk about very quickly. One is our Clean Air Rooms program. It is currently open. We've been able to leverage a variety of different funding, some local funding, funding from the California Air Resources Board, and then funding from the EPA to have over $8 million allocated to this program. You may recall, folks go online if they're a low-income resident or living in one of the valley's, unfortunately, many disadvantaged communities, they can get a clean air purifier for their home so they can set up a clean air room and at least have one place in their home that their family can gather that has purified air. It's awarded on a first come, first served basis. I will tell you, we still have plenty of money in this program right now, and it's shipped directly to your home. That's the great thing about this program. They go online, put in some really basic information based on a few questions, and we'll send it straight to your house. Multilingual outreach materials for this program. Again, we're in all 4 languages now. We've done an enormous amount of in-person events recently for the air purifier program. Over the past 18 months, we had staff at 18 events. That lower right event, or excuse me, lower left event, that's actually up at the Stockton Lawnmower Exchange program. We were giving away purifiers at that event. Had to check a couple of things, but it was one of those one-stop shop ideas that Jess was talking about earlier. We were in back to school, our school events. We were at health fairs, at Earth Days. We partner with any type of civic organization that might be having some type of event. That's just happened to be the Shafter Lions Club that were down at one of their, I think this was a farmer's market event that they were at. The last grant program I want to talk about is our Clean Air Center program. You might recall we came to you, I believe it was last year, and talked about funding that we received from the California Air Resources Board to set up clean air centers throughout the valley. These are typically libraries, senior centers, youth centers. We fund a commercial grade air purification unit. I think of it, it's about the size of a refrigerator typically. And we pay 100% of that cost. And we say, hey, local library, we want you to have this. And we're requiring that you turn it on if we have one of these wildfire events. If you want to run it all the time, that's okay too. But we want you to run it, especially during these wildfire events. We want you to put up some signage, and you have to have your location on our map. So folks can go, maybe they're unhoused, maybe they have a home that they don't feel safe in the level of purification they can get at their home. They can apply, they can go to one of these clean air programs. I will say, and I'm looking at Supervisor Prea and Supervisor McCauley, we still would love to have a few more clean air centers in both Merced and Madera counties. And I believe you've helped us out a little bit in the past, and we do have clean air centers in both those counties. But if you have any ideas, our grants team would love to directly call those folks and see if we can get them set up with even more clean air centers. We have 2 that are pending, and both are in Madera and Merced. So those aren't on this list quite yet because we're finalizing all the details, but we're actively working. And you might recall that that funding was allocated on a county by county basis, and there's still a little bit of funding in those 2 counties. I'm happy, or John is happy, or Samir is happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Supervisor Robinson.
Jamie, I was just looking to see Kings County, and I didn't see anything in terms of the clean air centers.
You have, I want to say 3 or 4 of them.
I didn't see it on the map.
We may have cut them out, but I can tell you exactly where they are because I can pull them up on my phone. We'll circle back. I'll tell you where they are, but we do have the money in Kings County was fully expended, and I'll tell you where those centers are.
Were they senior centers? Do you know?
Let me just tell you. If there are other questions, I can ask, and then I'll come back around.
Yep. The next thing is, our Native Americans did a really good job with forest management. So it's good to see that we're looking at fuel reduction again and prescribed burns. And then, there's one other question. I'll get back to it when you circle back. Thank you.
Dr. Pacheco Warner.
Yeah, 2 questions really. I wanted to know what you're seeing in terms of emerging research or research that you yourself are finding in terms of, as we're seeing these wildfire events coincide with extreme heat events as well, in terms of the ozone, or, is there like a disproportionate impact in particular places? Just any insight that you could offer on that as the wildfire event, extreme heat event relationship. And then I don't know if this is for you or for Jamie, but I wanted to see what if you're seeing any additional opportunities for funding on mitigation on this front, and if it would be enough or useful to start considering funding jurisdictions to provide free public transportation on those days where that level 4 is reached in either PM or ozone, if that's also a valuable avenue, aside from our clean air rooms and clean air centers, which are so crucial. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to talk about the first question you had about the temperatures we've seen this summer. Definitely, it's been extremely hot this summer across California, and we've had a lot of high ozone. PM 2.5 has been elevated. Other parts of the state has also had high ozone with these extreme heat events. So there is a strong connection between the 2. The hotter it is, the quicker the chemical formation process can happen, the more ultraviolet radiation is coming down. So we know that's a strong connection. We'll be tracking any new research on it, how that's been impacting statewide ozone and PM 2.5, what planning challenges come from that, and how that evidence can help support any work that we do in the future. So that is evolving and we're tracking that closely. Go ahead, Summer.
And I think I can answer the second question around funding. I would just brief response. I think we can follow up to see, what opportunities may be out there, with a lot of different transit agencies, obviously throughout the valley. I'm assuming that with extreme heat events and cooling centers, that if there was an interest from them on already providing transportation during those events, that we may be able to leverage that. We will never be a funder across the valley on a lot of free transit. I could just be pretty clear about that, just because there's a significant cost. Unless there's some major federal funding, when we advocate, maybe on some of the, but if we can leverage some of the other efforts that may be going on, just because I think these issues are very important. But another very related issue is extreme heat and just having access to different places where you can get some respite from that as well. And so I think it's actually a very good question that we can follow up with, and maybe also get the health officers to help us, sort of amplify the importance of that. But I do know that, with transit, it's always challenging to come up with the funding for doing that type of thing. So I'd be interested to see, if they've already been able to look at that, in this other context. It's been around for some time and it's becoming a big issue as well, during the summer period that we also see, some of the wildfire impacts. So we'll definitely follow up on that.
Member Wynn?
And just real quick, we're just going to show you this. I always think, oh, maybe I've screwed up and they don't have any. In this case, you have lots. Oh, they're all in it. Well, there you go. It looks like someone on your board has been working very hard to get lots of these set up in Avenal. But I believe the Veterans Memorial Hall is the Hanford.
Good job, Mary.
Yeah,
Get on it.
we actually have cooling centers and open for the community. Once the temperature rises to 105, it's open most of the day into the evening, like 7 p.m. And that's where those air purifiers, but we really don't have any commercial type big ones, but we have those, but they're very useful and used every day.
Thank you, Member Wynn?
Thank you.
Got ahead of myself.
That's all right. I'm just, Visalia is getting ready to open several navigation center and some tiny housing for our unhoused community. With the navigation center, it's 100-bed. Is that eligible? Is there any funds left in Tulare County if they were to get an air purifier for that system, a larger one, or are those funds expended? How do we find that out?
As it stands right now, there are no current funds, but that's not to say that is forever no additional funds. So I think that's something that perhaps we can look at.
And one thing we can also look at is we do have direction from the board that at some point here, if there isn't interest in a particular county that has remaining funding, that we don't want to lose these funds as well. I mean, so at some point, I'm just going to flip a switch and say, okay, well, if there's demand in other counties, we're just going to move the funding out. Now that hasn't happened yet. And I'm not suggesting that today. I think that there's still opportunities, but I'm just saying that, it is good. I think, now I don't want anybody to go through the whole process of filling out the form and all that without knowing that there's funding there. But
who would we contact?
It would be, you can go through Jamie and we'll get to the right place on that. Yeah. Thank you.
Member Rickman?
Thank you, Chairman. Just a few questions. Earlier today, we were talking about incentives, and it seems like we have incentives for everything, and a lot of it being reactive instead of being proactive. My point is, in San Joaquin County, at least, and especially in my district this year, we've had a lot of fires. One being the Corral Hollow fire, which is mentioned in this report, of 14,000 acre grass fire, which I was at the command post that day. But my point is there a way to get money or funding for incentives for like fire breaks? Mostly in these
Yes, yeah. I mean, and I think we're going to have as a pretty robust item here in a couple of months to talk about. There's actually a lot of funding going into fire breaks right now. Now, is that money enough? Is it being deployed, where it needs to be and all that? That's going to be the big. And you may recall in Modesto last year, we had a discussion around where CAL FIRE, Forest Service, and others are, and fire councils and others are. So there's going to be a big discussion around that. But there's billions of dollars actually in state funding that are being allocated to do fire breaks and other types of fuel management projects.
But instead of giving it, CAL FIRE, local fire agency is one thing, but giving it to private property owners is another. Large ranchers own thousands of acres. They know the land better than anybody else does, and where these fires break out. So private property funding. And lastly, and we talk about forest management. Is there any? At least the fires that I've been to in the past, one of the things that I always hear is that, hey, yeah, we have all this undergrowth and brush and so on, dead brush, that we can't remove it because there's some kind of government regulation, be it local or state. Or is there any way to push for legislation?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean
something like that.
Yeah, so these are all great questions. Just a quick response, and then we can see if we can kind of agendize that, because I think it's a very important topic when we talk about wildfire. And by the way, prevention and response, proactive and reactive, right? So definitely want to note that the board's position on these issues has been both proactive and reactive. Like reactive meaning, when you have smoke. But you're absolutely right. The proactive aspect of this is what are the policies? What's the fuel reduction effort? By the way, I do believe there is funding, for example, on the private side. How effective is it? Like, what are we doing to support fire councils and all these different things that are happening that might actually be a great partnership opportunity? It's actually one of the big things that we want to talk to the board about when we lay this out. What are the policies that are barriers? A lot of what you just mentioned, I think, are probably some of the, if it's on the federal side, it could be NEPA type process and some of the other environmental protections that are in place on the local side. So there are different things that are happening, I think, to try to reduce some of those barriers, both at the state and federal level. But the challenge is that, we need expedited measures, and, some things are taking longer than others. So there's going to be a big discussion around, this grant piece on the clean air rooms and the centers is one component of a multifaceted strategy that is really, all of the above. And the board's been very clear that we should be pursuing all of these different things. So there's going to be a big report out on that. As part of, we have a tentative agenda item there at the November study session that's going to be held as a little plug in Visalia this year. But that's going to be one of the big items, and I'm taking notes. These are the various facets that we should be discussing at that item as well.
All right. Thank you, Samira, and thank you, Chairman, for your time.
Thank you.
Member Rainier?
Thank you, Chair. In Wasco, we use the same criteria to offer a cooling center. Anytime the weather reaches 105 degrees, we open the old courthouse building to the public for cooling. However, it's many times empty. Only our employees are there, and occasionally we have one or two people, maybe three at a time. And we provide also free transportation to the cooling center. But we do not have a high efficiency air filtration system. And I'm very interested in finding out how we could do that. Where do we get the funding from?
Yeah, so we'll follow up with you because the program is open. It's on our webpage. There's a pretty simple form basically that you would fill out that just indicates the nature of, where the location is, what the hours of operation are. And it's about $5,000 for one of these commercial grade air purifiers. So the grant program would cover the majority, if not all, of the cost of purchasing one of those units. So it's actually a pretty straightforward process. Essentially, you're committing to being available essentially during those operating hours and using that unit whenever there is a major, let's say wildfire smoke impact. At minimum, you could use it even beyond that too. But So we want it to be streamlined, and we just want to, it is a state funding pot, by the way, that we compete, we were very competitive in bringing these funds to the Valley. So we do want to make sure we expend all the funds here as quickly as possible. We'll get that information out to the entire board again, with the link and all that. That way, if you have any opportunities, please let us know if we can help with that.
Thank you, Samir. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Member Robinson?
Thank you. One question is, are we working with anybody like, for fire hardening? Because in a lot of cases, the homeowners can do some of this on their own because they're doing some clearing and things of that nature. Another question is, I know when it comes to a state fire on state lands, CAL FIRE is going to help us. But what's the policy now of the federal government? I think it used to be, or it was at one point, where they just let it burn. So just if you could.
On the first question, the home hardening, yeah. So there are actually requirements for hardening, like that. So we work with residents to try to make that as streamlined and as easy as possible. And so there's definitely, that's actually part of our program. There's a regulatory piece of that as well that, and John kind of hit on that a little bit. There's actually requirements around that. And then as far as, there was a question earlier also about ranches. And so that is one of those areas where, we're definitely trying to pursue, how can we play a role in supporting any local kind of fire council or other types of efforts. We actually have ongoing conversations with different parts of the Valley where some of those things are now becoming bigger through state funding, actually, that's actually helping to fund, some of the organizing. And so that's something that we can definitely report out on more. And the last question, I think, on federal policy, I think that there is movement on the federal side. There are more prescribed burns that are going on. When there's a naturally ignited fire, that does get very complex sometimes, both on the state and federal side in terms of how it's managed. It could be managed in a number of different ways. There's extreme kind of levels of suppression depending on conditions and maybe proximity to basically homes and other types of infrastructure and things like that. But there's also situations where they try to manage those forests for resource benefit when possible under certain conditions. And so we actually interact very closely with. We have a daily call actually through the entire fire season where we're constantly interacting with different land management agencies about air quality impact, about what they're hoping to be able to do, basically trying to help with decision points on that, how they're communicating with the public about any impacts that are happening. And so that's a very sort of, it's complicated, but it's a very active space. And on the federal side, I think that there are still some challenges from a planning perspective, kind of getting through all the steps that are required to say do a prescribed burn is very, very complicated. I think there's incremental movement, but I don't think it's exactly where the federal agencies themselves would still like to be. And so we heard a report on that last year at the study session, just in terms of how many acres have been treated and where, there's actually a commitment by the state and federal governments. There's an agreement to treat about 500,000 acres each per year moving forward. And so that's another report out that we hope to have in terms of where different agencies are in meeting those commitments. And we're actually just actively talking about that right now in terms of trying to get that data and be able to present it here in just a few months. So where they are with some of the barriers that I think you're referring to as well on the policy side.
And so when you say treated, I mean, are we talking about fire breaks? What are we doing?
It includes fire breaks, prescribed burns, mechanical, other things that they're doing, beyond just burning to try to, there's different approaches that are being used. Gathering material, there's pile burns that go on. There's air curtain incinerators that are being used in some of the forests as well as another way of kind of treating, basically dead trees. So there's quite a range of different things that are going on.
Thanks. Member McCauley.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple quick comments. In regards to defensible spaces, assisting homeowners I think one thing that I would really encourage staff to look at is partnering with our local resource conservation districts on things like community chipping days, where we're not only going to reduce the 2.5 in the community immediately, but we're going to reduce the risk of fire in the long run. If you look at our list here, I think a lot of our fires do start by local homeowners, not all of them. Some of them are lightning fires or maybe on the roadside, but we do have a lot of fires starting from folks mowing their lawn when they shouldn't be mowing their lawn, those sorts of things. I would also say from a policy standpoint, talking about heat waves and those sorts of things, I would point out back in 2021, the state of California did recognize a heat dome disaster in which there were several fires throughout the state that started. However, the federal government did not recognize that heat dome disaster. And so that is really important in your local jurisdiction's ability to respond and recover from those disasters. So I think there's some work to be done there as we move forward, collecting information and adapting, I guess, to the new normal, as they say. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Sheriff.
Thank you. A sobering presentation. 44% of PM 2.5 originating in wildfires. That is just a staggering statistic. Everybody understands how important PM 2.5 is in terms of health, and we are a public health agency. That 44% in part is a testament to our success in eliminating our sources of PM 2.5. But it also speaks to this is a problem that is going to be increasing in the future, not decreasing. And it's great highlighting, how we're supporting forest managers as we reconsider forest management practices that have certainly contributed to our getting here. Rediscovering past techniques that have been useful. Great the coordination we've been doing with land managers to take advantage of the practices they have that might seem to contradict what we're about in terms of air quality. Some of these practices create smoke. Ms. Holt, really important work educating the public, and I love the multi-pronged approach. I love having something being old school, I like having a piece of paper I can look at, but really appreciate the internet connected for those who live in that world. As a doctor, I'm into prevention, and I think you want your doctors to be into prevention. If I see a case of cancer, I want to understand, well, why did this person get this cancer? What's the underlying cause? Is there something I can or should do about that? And I appreciate Supervisor Rickman highlighting being proactive and thinking prevention. Well, as we think about why wildfires are intensifying, yes, in part it's been that forest management practices of the past that allowed the buildup of all this fuel, but the role of climate change is huge. It's a significant contributor to the extension of the fire season. I remember the good old days. October, oh good, I can relax. No, it's not the end of the fire season at all. Contributing to the intensity and the frequency of fires. So, this is really a plea. We're a public health agency. We're into prevention. We all need to not just embrace opportunities to impact greenhouse gas emissions when they benefit criteria pollutants. Absolutely, criteria pollutants are our primary responsibility. But we really need to be thinking about root causes, consider in our individual lives, in our communities, the agencies, the boards we serve with, ways, policies, programs that can help impact greenhouse gases, because that is fundamentally at the bottom of this accelerating problem. And it is accelerating, and it's going to continue to accelerate. And we really need to bend that curve. Thank you.
Are there any public comments in Bakersfield? No public comment in Bakersfield. Thank you. Any public comments in Modesto?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public in Fresno that would like to comment on this item? I have one coming up to the podium.
Gee, good morning again, Mr. Chairman, staff, Samir. I'd like to, as a positive thing from what agriculture is doing in this valley and even up north, but especially in the valley, in Fresno County Department of Health, we've been working with a buddy and his entire Department of Health staff. We are passing out N95 masks to the workers. And we've been doing that now for the last 3 heavy months because of the fire season. So we go out and deliver N95s through the help and coordination, even with Tulare County or Madera or any of the health departments. We just deliver N95s free to the workers in the fields. We don't just give them to the crew bosses because then they go to the swap meet. We give them actually to the workers or people like Buddy. We give it to Buddy, he gives it to his farm manager, or even maybe Vito maybe even gets it. But I just wanted to let the board know that in the Air District, we are also thinking of the farm workers in the fields. We've adjusted our schedules tremendously to deal with the heat, to deal with the smoke. So Ag has absolutely done its part and is doing its part for the worker safety issues. Number 2, I would like to hear more about the great positive that agriculture burn has reduced. And it has done a tremendous job. Samir and his entire team with Ryan and those folks, we are part of cleaning that up. The last part is on Samir, maybe it's an idea, Mr. Chairman. We need to have the federal agencies sit down with the state agencies and this air district, and probably even because some of our ranchers on the east side run into conflicts with the Endangered Species Act. 3 miles away, there is an eagle's nest, and suddenly now our farmers can't any prescribed burn at all because they got to go find out about that eagle or that hawk or whatever it is when it's nesting time. So now we have the problems that happened outside of Sangre a couple months or a month ago on that big fire. So maybe we could pull together a meeting to talk about to where our farmers aren't going to be in conflict with federal or state agencies when trying to do a prescribed burn or going out and doing a disc around the cattle ranch. They're precluded even using a disc to disc the dry grass along the fence line, even along 180, because of an endangered species. Well, what's more important? Let it burn or run a disc down the side of the thing to prevent from letting it burn and cause everything else. So we would like to be a part of that, whatever we can help Samir and the chairman of pulling together those agencies. But if we can all do it together, it would really help and do those things. So thank you very much again. Appreciate it.
For your comments.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments in Fresno? Seeing none and none online.
All right, back to the board.
This isn't an accident.
Update only.
Yeah,
All right. Public comment.
sorry.
All right, moving on to item 11. An update on the state implementation plan and approval of the air quality modeling hardware replacement. This is an action item. Emily, hi.
Yes, there is. And I'd just like to, quick introduction, have Shiraz Gill, the deputy APCO, over the planning, and then Emily Nealand, who last time you saw her, I believe she was interim director of planning and is now director of planning. So just wanted to make that announcement as well. And I'll turn it over to Shiraz to start the presentation here.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. I'll kick off this presentation here, kind of give you a quick background and give you all the progress to date, which you hear from time to time, but there's a lot of good work that's been done by your board and the district. So I'm just waiting here for the presentation. Since I don't have mine in front of me, I'll pull it up really quick. Here we go. There we go. So just quickly, you've heard about the challenges here in the San Joaquin Valley we just live in a bowl, right? We're surrounded by mountains. We have stagnant conditions, both in the wintertime and in the summertime. Our topography, meteorology, just makes it very difficult for us. It makes it very unique just to be here in the Valley compared to the rest of the regions in the nation. We also are a big major goods movement, 99, Interstate 5, high population growth, pollution, transport from other areas. We talked about significant wildfires that are impacting us. We have drought that has had impacted us in the past, and it could impact us again in the future. And these conditions require substantially greater emission reductions to meet these very tough federal clean air requirements compared to other regions. So your board has done quite a bit of work over the last several decades, adopted numerous attainment plans and regulations and strategies to address these federal standards. Stationary source ozone and PM forming NOx emissions have been reduced well over 90%. You see this chart every time it's posted in the governing boardrooms. Every year you see that bar graph to the right get lower and lower. So right now we're at 93% reduction in stationary source emissions. CARB has also adopted numerous mobile source control measures that have reduced significant amount of emissions. And together, combined efforts represent the nation's toughest emissions control program. We also have a very strong and robust incentive program, over $6.5 billion in public and private investment. And that dollar amount continues to grow. And through these significant clean air investments, the Valley continues to make major improvements with respect to air quality. Now, while significant improvements have been made, there's still more work to be done. I'll talk about, and Emily will go into more detail about the new standard that the EPA just put together. So more reductions are needed. Now, I'll talk about some of the advancements we made in terms of air pollution. This one refers to the number of days. These are donut charts. That number of days meeting the standard versus days exceeding the standard. This is a health-based standard. This is the ozone standard. This is a PM 2.5 standard, all put together in this chart. As you know, we have ozone issues in the summer and when PM issues in the wintertime. So back in 2002, about half of the year, you would see exceedances of this standard. So about 180 days you would see. And then that was cut in half and 25% in 2012. And now it's about 10% this past year in 2023. So representing only 35 days where you have exceedances of both the ozone and PM 2.5 in different times of the year. So that's a significant improvement in terms of Valley residents having clean air and breathing clean air. These graphs show the progress toward meeting the PM 2.5 standards. There's three standards we're talking about here. There's a 1997 annual PM 2.5 standard of 15 micrograms. There's a 2012 annual PM 2.5 standard of 12 micrograms and the new federal standard that EPA just established of 9 micrograms. So the first bar graph on the top, that's just the 1 year design value, or just not a design, but just the 1 year value average. And the bottom is a 3-year design value. That's how EPA actually calculates the value. It's based on 3 years. If you look at just the 1 year, every site in the Valley is below 15 micrograms, right? So that's great. And the deadline for that standard was last year, end of last year. And if you look for 12 micrograms, a significant number of the sites are already below the 12 microgram. And a couple of standards sites are already below the 9 micrograms. So for that 1 year last year, you can show that significant improvements have been made. Now, on a 3-year basis, you can see we're still hovering a little bit over the 15 micrograms. That's due to exceptional events, the wildfires we talked about. There's a significant amount of wildfires that can be excluded. A lot of documentation is needed. Again, you see with the 12, many sites are lower, but there's still a lot of work to be done there. And then, of course, the 9, we're going to be working on a great strategy to get that into attainment. This chart shows, bar graph shows the progress towards meeting ozone standards. There's 3 standards there. There's a 1997 standard, 84 parts per billion. 2008 standard, which is 75 parts per billion, and the 2015 standard, which is 70 parts per billion. As you can see, from 2002, we were about 115 parts per billion during that time. And now in the past year, in 2023, dropped to 84, which is right at the standard, at meeting the 1997 standard. And then we have several years to meet the 2008 and the 2015 standard all the way up to 2037. So our attainment strategy, our modeling, and just Emily's going to talk about the modeling center, demonstrates that we'll ultimately get there with the strategies that are in place, getting reductions into the future. So now I'll just talk about what the attainment status is and our maintenance plans. We have achieved significant progress in attaining a number of federal air quality standards. The 1 hour CO carbon monoxide and 8 hour carbon monoxide standards, the 1 hour NO2 and annual NO2 standards, the sulfur dioxide standard, the lead standard. We're the first region to attain the 1 hour ozone standard after being in non-attainment. We have met the daily PM10 standard. And several years ago, we're in attainment of the 65 microgram standard. And we're also working on the 15 microgram standard right now. We're well below, as you saw in the previous slides, we're well below in 2023, and we're likely in attainment in 2024. And we're currently still evaluating the potential attainment of the 84 parts per billion standard. So as we move forward and as we continue to meet these standards, the district prepares maintenance plans and will provide those updates to your board and take them to CARB and EPA. And we'll continue to work towards the attainment of the most recent ozone and PM 2.5 standards under the Cleaner Act timeframes. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Emily to talk about some of the details of our planning efforts.
Thank you. Thanks, Roz, and good morning, Mr. Chair and your board. It's really nice to be here with you guys this morning. Most recently, with respect to our planning efforts, in June, your board approved the 2024 PM 2.5 plan, which was developed in partnership with CARB to address Clean Air Act requirements for the 2012 annual PM 2.5 standard of 12 micrograms. The plan builds upon decades of implementing effective control measures and is based on extensive science and research, state-of-the-art modeling, and the best available information. The plan was developed through an extensive public process. We had numerous workshops, Spanish participants, evening workshops, multiple updates to your board, the CAC and EJAG. So really extensive public process. The plan includes new regulatory and incentive-based measures, including numerous stationary source measures to achieve reductions in the near term, additional commitments for evaluating and implementing additional emission reductions through 2030. And through all of this, it provides for expeditious attainment by 2030, reducing NOx emissions by 66% and PM 2.5 emissions by 16%. So again, your board adopted this plan in June. Most recently, the CARB governing board adopted the plan at their July hearing. And the next step is EPA will be reviewing the plan and approving the plan here in the coming months and years. Through all of the commitments in the plan, the majority of the valley is currently in attainment, but through the measures that are included, we will be reaching attainment by 2030. But it is important to note that the majority of the valley residents are already in areas in attainment, and expeditious attainment for those more persistent areas is coming in the coming years by 2030. Now that we've adopted the plan, we're moving into our implementation phase, which will require significant public and stakeholder engagement in close collaboration with CARB and EPA. We'll also be supporting additional research in partnership with agencies and stakeholders to develop effective measures based on sound science. The table before you includes our additional plan commitments that build on the already adopted measures that are in place and approved by your board. It includes a number of regulatory measures for CMPs and fireplaces, additional measures for fireplace and wood stove changeouts, and a nut harvest emission reduction strategy. And as I mentioned, a number of additional measures to evaluate and pursue additional emission reduction opportunities as they become available through 2030. Quickly, I just wanted to touch on contingency measure requirements for both PM 2.5 and ozone. I've talked with your board about this issue for a number of years. In 2023, we took a number of actions to address PM 2.5 contingency measure requirements for the three PM 2.5 standards. Your board adopted this package in May, and it was submitted to EPA in June of 2023. EPA proposed approval and deferred sanctions in December of 2023. EPA is currently under a consent decree in which they would either have to finalize that approval or take final action to put a FIP or a federal implementation plan in place in September of this year. So we have been collaborating with EPA to ensure that a FIP is not imposed on the Valley. So we are awaiting their final action, and it's anticipated soon. With regards to ozone contingency measure requirements for both the 2008 and 2015 standards, your board adopted a package to address these requirements in April of this year, and it was subsequently submitted to EPA also in April of this year. Permit sanctions began on May 2nd, and highway sanctions and a FIP would be required on November 2nd of this year. So again, we have been coordinating with EPA to ensure that these additional sanctions are not imposed and that a FIP is not imposed on the Valley. So we are awaiting their proposed action to defer sanctions, and that's also anticipated soon. Looking ahead, EPA finalized their new PM 2.5 standard in February of this year, lowering the annual standard from 12 micrograms to 9 micrograms per cubic meter. They did retain the 24-hour PM 2.5 and PM 10 standards, and also updated the PM 2.5 air quality index to make it relative to this new 9 microgram standard, and also included new monitoring requirements. So moving ahead, EPA, their final rule for this standard starts a timeline for new planning actions, including the requirement for the district to prepare a new state implementation plan to show attainment of the standard by its respective attainment year. Just a little bit more on that timeline, a little bit more detail for you. Again, EPA finalized this standard in February of this year. By February of next year, California and other states will be submitting their suggested designations to EPA, and EPA will make their formal designations in 2026. In 2027 timeframe, a moderate plan would be due to EPA, in which we would request to be reclassified to serious non-attainment due to the challenges in the San Joaquin Valley. And a serious plan would subsequently be due to EPA 4 years after they officially reclassify us to serious. The attainment date for the moderate non-attainment areas is 2032, and the attainment date for the serious areas would be 2036. This standard is going to be extremely challenging, as I'm sure you all know and we've talked about previously. As has been mentioned a number of times in this meeting, the 2023 air quality data shows significant progress towards meeting these annual PM 2.5 standards. The new standard will be challenging, as I mentioned. As part of putting this standard into place, EPA published an analysis looking at potential emission reduction opportunities in different areas such as the San Joaquin Valley. And the measures that they identified actually fell short of what would be needed for us to reach attainment. And so because of that, more actions needed by EPA. The analysis did not include any EPA potential measures or mobile source measures in general. So really amplifying that issue. We will be working with Carbon EPA to evaluate the extent of our challenges here in the Valley, pursue needed research and potential additional measures. And as part of that, our district's modeling center will play a major role in the analysis and establishing the strategy to reach attainment of this standard. Of course, we're going to continue implementing our existing measures at both the local and state level to improve air quality in the Valley, which will assist in making progress and building towards strategy development for this new standard. The table here shows the air quality data from 2023, which again was a record year, very clean air quality and very representative of what air quality would look like in the Valley without things like wildfires. It's important to note, though, attainment is based on a 3-year average, and so consecutive clean years is very important for us to showing attainment. The majority of sites are already below the 12 microgram standard, and significant progress is needed to meet the 9 microgram standard. So you can see the first column in all green is showing the 15 microgram standard. All sites were below that standard. For the 12 microgram, there's a couple more persistent areas. That was the plan that you just adopted, was to get these additional sites into attainment. And then on the far right is the 9 microgram standard, which you can see from the colors on the table, it's going to be extremely challenging. I also wanted to touch on our air quality modeling system upgrade, which is part of the action before you today. To support our ongoing strategy development for this standard, we use an in-house state-of-the-art air quality modeling system to model the efficacy of various emission reduction measures and strategies to predict future air quality. Your board's previously invested in establishing this modeling system, including staffing resources to provide critical support to establish these strategies for both ozone and PM 2.5 in partnership with CARB, who does modeling on their end as well. Most recently, as the hardware that constitutes this modeling system has aged over time, various components are in need of replacement and upgrade. And so that is the action that's before you today, to seek approval to purchase the necessary replacement hardware for the district's modeling system to support our strategy development for this new standard. And lastly, as I mentioned, attainment of this new standard will not be possible without action from EPA. The 2024 PM 2.5 plan that your board just adopted does not include any measures from EPA, despite us, continually talking with them, calling for action on the federal level. So it is imperative that emissions are reduced from sources under their jurisdiction, including heavy-duty trucks, locomotives, and other mobile sources. We also continue to advocate for state and federal action with regards to funding and pursuing that funding in order to achieve emission reductions from mobile sources, as attainment, again, of this new standard will not be possible without support from EPA. So we do have a number of recommendations before you this morning, and I would be happy to take any questions that you have.
Mr. Chair, board members, just a quick note on the modeling center. Annually, the board has set aside funding into a special reserve for the modeling center. So the action that we're talking about today would basically authorize use of those reserves that are already in the budget to move forward and actually make the upgrades that those reserves are intended to make. So I just wanted to just clarify that part on the fiscal side. It's in the item and recommendation, but just wanted to note that.
Yeah, very good. I am waiting for a letter from Tranquility because they want to cede from the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District. Those are really impressive readings in Tranquility, and it's right in the middle of the valley. So very interesting. Dr. Pacheco Warner.
Thank you so much. Two things. One, I just really wanted to praise you and your team. I think that this presentation is so clear, and I actually used your slides to help clarify things for cardboard members. Just outstanding work on that. Trying to really tell that complex story of where we're at and where we still need to go. A question in terms of this buy. When do you see the equipment up and running? Is it pretty immediate, or in terms of like the model, like when are you planning to use it? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that. But the short answer is quickly. So it's been scoped out. Equipment's been identified. So it's just a really question of getting approval, procuring it, having it shipped, and then basically set up. It's going to make a huge difference in our capabilities in terms of our ability to run different scenarios, to basically start just testing, what works, what doesn't work, in terms of different measures. And so it's going to be really interesting to really take that to the next level, given just how difficult that new standard is going to be. I think it's going to be a great support system for that. And that can be coupled, by the way, with some of the comments raised earlier on the research side, which was also noted during the presentation. I think that kind of tool can be very useful as we also try to embark on even more research to really give us the foundation that we need, for that new plan. So, but it's very quickly.
Thank you. Dr. Sheriffs.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. 3 questions. I don't think I have any comments. 1 question. On this chart, and maybe you answered it, I'm a little hard of hearing, I may have missed it, but it's got design value and annual average. And I was wondering why we had charts for both. Although my interpretation as I see these would be, well, good, the design value is actually always higher than what we actually attained. So we're making conservative estimates and then actually able to overperform, which is absolutely what we'd want rather than getting the other surprise.
Yeah, that's a great question. So attainment, when we have to show attainment to EPA, it's based on a 3-year average.
Right.
So ultimately, 2023 was very clean. And so that's the message that we're trying to get across.
Okay.
It is representative of what air quality would be like in the valley without things like wildfires. The reason we show both that and the 3-year average is because attainment is based on the 3-year average. And so although 2023 was very clean, we're still not technically in attainment of the standard when you look at the Clean Air Act requirement of the 3-year average. So that's the reason that both of those are shown.
Okay.
One of the other clarifying points, the reason we're also showing 2023, it shows a clean year for the 15 microgram center. We're able to get a 1-year extension till 2024 to demonstrate attainment of that 15 microgram as well.
Thank you. Page 11. Permit offset sanctions began May 2nd, 2024. What? Say more.
Yeah, so there's, as your board is aware, there's several sanctions that get triggered based on differing things that happen under the Clean Air Act. The first of those sanctions that goes into place are what are called permit offset sanctions. And what that basically requires is that when we go through the process of permitting a major facility that's subject to federal permitting requirements, they're often required to provide offsets. So for whatever potential emissions they have to come up with reductions that have happened or have been banked that offset that release. Those always have to be done at a ratio that's higher. It's never 1-to-1. So typically that's at 1.5-to-1. So 50% more they have to offset. Under the sanctions, they have during that period of time when those sanctions are in place, they have to do 2-to-1.
Okay.
Offset.
And third, I guess, maybe it is a comment. The last call for federal action, contained within it is, well, we also need state action because another big contribution is off-road. And I think that falls under the state's purview.
Yes, definitely more state action is needed, but the plans that we develop are in partnership with CARB, and they do put a number of measures forward. So that is why we're calling specifically for federal action where they've been silent in a lot of ways. The state has stepped up to try and reduce emissions from sources here in the state of California, but interstate trucks that are dirty are still coming to California. So that's why we specifically call for federal action.
Member Rickman.
Thank you, Chairman. And for Samir, and when you're looking at attainment numbers or even sanctions, does the Chevron deference case from the U.S. Supreme Court that just was ruled on this year, or just recently, did that come into play at all for us?
That's a great question. There's a national conversation going on around, the importance of that particular case. And currently, we aren't in litigation, for example, with say the federal EPA on an issue. But I would suspect in the future, as more and more precedents get established under the latest kind of ruling there by the Supreme Court, that there may be some relevance in the future. I mean, currently, I can't really speak to that. I think a lot of that is still shaken out in terms of what that ultimately means. I think that there are impacts, there are unforeseen impacts from different perspectives, actually, that come out of that ruling in terms of, that may or may not be favorable to whatever particular interest may be interested in a particular issue. So I think that's actually the complexity of it, is that, I think that I don't think anybody really fully understands yet what the exact outcome of that is going to be. I think there's a lot of concern all around in terms of what that might mean going into the future.
All right. Thank you, Samir, and thank you, Chairman.
Okay. See no more questions from the board. We'll go out to the public.
Are there any public comments in Modesto?
No public comments in Modesto.
Thank you. Are there any public comments in Bakersfield?
No public comment in Bakersfield.
Thank you. Do I have any public comments in Fresno? I do see one coming to the podium.
Good morning. My name is Roger Rice. I'm President and CEO of the California Cotton Ginners and Growers Association and Western Agricultural Processors Association. I want to kind of tie a couple of things together. Today, when you first started the meeting, it was the study agency. And that study agency is extremely important. It's really what's guided this air district into achieving those reductions behind me on the wall and how you've been able to achieve attainment for a lot of the air quality standards that are out there. I think, the majority of you on the board now probably weren't here when a lot of those studies were underway, but the Central California Ozone Study and the California Regional Particulate Matter Air Quality Study were extremely important. It was millions and millions of dollars, but those two studies for particulate matter and ozone were state of the art. There are countries and states using that data from those studies today, but it's really what got us into attainment for a lot of those standards and will still be used. Some of that is lost. At the PM 2.5 plan hearing that CARB had, there was discussion after all the public comment was closed and statements by some of the board members there that said that this district has years of inactivity. Another comment was continued delays. A lot of what was said in this presentation today was not recognized or understood by the board members because the majority of the CARB board is new as well. They just don't have the education or the experience of what's been done. I think that this presentation needs to be given to those board members. I've got some homework on my side to make sure they get educated, but we need to educate those folks to make sure they understand what's been done. That being said, I think when you look at the 9 microgram standard, we need to reinvigorate the study agency. We really need to look at what it's going to take to get to 9 micrograms to make sure that we're going after what is actually going to get us there and what's going to get us the reductions. The last thing I would say is that, and I know Dr. Sheriff made a comment about the off-road. Another thing that was lost at that ARB board meeting was the discussion that off-road has been addressed and is continuing to be addressed. And quite frankly, ag, without any regulation, has stepped to the plate to get significant reductions on more than one occasion and work because we worked with CARB and the Air District to get those. That was not recognized. In fact, they said, we're not doing anything on off-road. We need to step it up. It was completely inaccurate and inappropriate, but we need to continue that. We look at this state's budget this year, and yes, it was tough, but we took away one of the most important programs the state has funded, and that was the farmer program. We need to bring that back next year. We all need to work together to try to fight that. So just want to make those comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
We have another public comment coming up to the podium.
Manuel Cunha, Nice Farmers League. Mr. Isom spoke on a couple items. I will say this, Dr. Pacheco Warner, I thank you. But the failure of the California Resources Board upper management, after the closing of the comments, we had no way to defend what was comments made by board members that were totally wrong. Very disappointing that this district formed in 1990, 91, and you formed a JPA to do study agency work. And what I see today and what all that was presented made us look like we do nothing. And then to suddenly come out that now the board wants to look at all of agricultural tractors in the state. Because if we're not going to get any funding, then we need to regulate all the tractors. Absolutely unfair. I was, after so many years, 30 years, and we've worked hard. Ag has worked damn hard. In 1992 with Jan Sharpless, ARB, to have the facts, the science, and everything. And yet, we were thrown under the bus for doing nothing. The ag burn that we did was huge with this district. And if it wasn't for Richard Corey, none of this would have happened. And Dr. Pacheco, I think you know that. You went on several trips to the farm about ag burn. And I thank you for that. But yet we weren't even recognized for anything. We've reduced the ag burn tremendously. Tractors, 2008, 5 to 10 tons of NOx. We got 17 tons. 2017, a new standard or a new voluntary number, 11 tons. We got over about 11 and a half, 12 tons with EPA discrediting NRCS's numbers. So we could have had maybe 14 tons of NOx. But it's very disappointing. As many years as I've been here and part of this and seen everything, the 600 rules that we have, stronger than the South Coast. And I was in a meeting on Tuesday. It was pretty wrenching to hear an ISR rule that is only a moneymaker for the South Coast in warehouses and going after all types of warehouses and saying that the only thing that could go into a warehouse is an electric truck and going after rail. That's fine. Who pays for that increase? We, the business, we, the community. Jobs lost. So again, Mr. Chairman and Samir, thank you for the continued support though. Agriculture will do its part, but we're not going to get screwed as an industry for bad science and because of whack jobs who just want to destroy my industry. The rural communities are dang important to our valley, to this country. They feed the world. But again, thank you very much. We look forward, as Roger says, the study agency, Mr. Chairman, must happen. Thank you.
Manuel.
Any other in-person comments at this time? I'm going to go online. We have Kevin Abernathy.
Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I take it you can hear me?
I can.
Perfect. Mr. Chair, members of the board, appreciate being able to backstop the comments of my colleagues, Roger and Manuel. Cannot reiterate the study agency's importance in a common area that we can really get under the hood and look at the best ways to move things forward in conjunction with ag tech as it relates to agriculture. Really want to thank district staff and Shiraz, you stole a lot of my highlights in your presentation. Ironically, hearing the things that came out after the fact at the CAR board meeting, I thought it was completely ironic that all the public comments today with the graph that's been on the back wall of the governing board room for a number of years now really says it all. As someone that has been engaged in this process on the dairy side with my other colleagues, hearing that we've done nothing, just talk about kicking the three-legged milk stool out from underneath you. I mean, come on, guys. If it wasn't for the San Joaquin Valley and the programs that you guys have put together and what you guys have accomplished and your predecessors have accomplished, you've really made CARB, which is a pretty inept institution to begin with, look like rock stars. And I never heard any of that come out of the CARB hearing. So want to reiterate my support and comments that were made prior, and secondarily, support the efforts on funding. Any dollars you can get over into Leland Shop is money well spent because he is one amazing human being. Thank you.
Your comments, Kevin.
Thank you. No further online comments.
So, yeah, it's always hard for me to say things. When I look at the map over there, we talk about all the great progress that has happened over the years and the thought process of the technology wasn't there and how we were going to get from point A to point B. And now with the new 9 microgram standard, it seems very, very difficult to attain. We can't say it any easier than that. We're going to need lots of help. There's going to be the need for lots of money to be invested in this in programs like farmer funding. I hear your frustration, Roger and Manuel, that there's not enough credit given to what has been done so far, and that seems unfair. Again, I wasn't a part of the hearing, but that isn't the way I would do it, because you're always going to get further in life, not by mandating, but by helping people get there through technology. with funds and other things. So I appreciate those comments. Again, we are where we are, and we're going to have to fight our way through it. We're going to have to do our job better, and everyone else is going to have to try and help us for sure. So
Move approval of the recommendation.
Second.
the motion, second.
Okay, call for roll. Mr. Couch,
Yes.
Mr. McCauley,
Yes.
Mr. Mendez,
Yes.
Dr. Pacheco Warner,
Yes.
Mr. Pereira,
I vote aye.
Mr. Preciado,
Yes.
Mr. Reyna,
Yes.
Mr. Rickman,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Dr. Sheriffs,
Arg.
Ms. Shiglian,
Aye.
Ms. Nguyen,
Yes.
Mr. Chiesa,
Aye.
through the chair, motion passes.
Thank you very much. On to item 12, which is a verbal report on the California Resources Board. Dr. Pacheco Warner.
Thank you so much, Chair. I just wanted to appreciate Roger's comments on more education of the cardboard. I think, like I said, I definitely, within my Bagley King limits, have tried to do that as well. But I think more engagement from everyone is really necessary. And I will say that I think there is also an important grounding always of public health, and the experiences of communities are important, both on the necessary for an ongoing economy as well as the public health effects of air pollution, which is continuously challenging, as we heard today, around wildfire smoke and all of that. So I think that all of that is really important. I want to say that there is I think there is a commitment, and as I said in my comments at the cardboard meeting, is important to say here, which also coincides with what Roger said. There does need to be a commitment to science in the planning of the next standard, the 9 microgram standard, and the grounding of both where the reductions are needed for sure, but also like really truly understanding the reductions that are being gained from the actions that are already happening within the air district, and being able to quantify those and being able to get those recognized within the planning as well, I think will be really important. And so really getting everything quantified, both what's needed, but also what has been done, I think will be really key. I do want to say that there is the next, and maybe Samir will talk about it a little bit more, but the next cardboard meeting for August is next week, and it is here in Fresno, and it is here. So I think that there is definitely an added opportunity for engagement, an added opportunity for cross dialogue. And I will say that as harsh as a hearing last whatever weeks ago that was, I got COVID like soon after that, so like everything's been a blur since then. I do think that one of the key things for me is really speaking to some of the board members and even seeing some of their comments in 2024 versus what they were in 2020. I think there is some increase in understanding and credit of what our air district is doing, but we do have a longer way to go on that as well. So I not to defend anybody or anything, but I do think that even though it was a hard hearing, I do think that there is some increase in understanding that wasn't there even just 4 years ago. So definitely encourage you all to be engaged on that front. And then I also wanted to mention that one of our bigger regulatory items, the for this year, which we'll have our hearing on in November. The low carbon fuel standard has just released their latest update of 15-day changes. So encourage you all, anyone that is involved in the fuel space, to engage in that. And it's very relevant for the San Joaquin Valley, as the San Joaquin Valley is seen as sort of like ground zero in terms of those types of climate fuel investments. So it is either we are engaged or it is affecting us, but either way, it is happening, and it's happening in the Valley. So I wanted to make sure you all knew about that. And that is available on the CARB website under a low carbon fuel standard and the 15-day changes that were published last Monday. Yeah, so that's it. Thank you so much.
Exciting times. Any questions for Dr. Pacheco-Warner? All right, move on to the Executive Director's report.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of items on the CARB side of things. Just wanted to kind of amplify the point that Dr. Pacheco-Warner made around the meeting next week. It's actually called the Dairy Sector Workshop officially. So it's focused on state kind of dairy policy and basically taking public comments on what's happening at the state level through CARB on dairy. I think particularly the methane emissions, but various things that are going on there. It's at 10 a.m. here at the we've they asked us to use our facilities, and as good central facilities have allowed them to use our facilities here. I believe it's going to be pretty much throughout the day. So just if anybody's interested in more information on that, let me know. There could be a quorum of CARB board members there, so I think that's why it was referred to as potentially a CARB board meeting. But basically it's a maybe, as far as maybe it's confirmed now on that front, but just wanted to let you all know, and we'll be tuning into that as well. Just want to also note, and I think it might be in the package, I just wanted to highlight that during the CARB hearing in July, there was also a really positive item, I think, on the work that's going on around the AB 617 program. Later that evening, there was another part to the meeting where a lot of what we're doing here locally was highlighted as very good work, very basically setting the bar in a lot of different fronts. So just wanted to also note that there was quite a bit of, I think, recognition of that effort. And basically what we'd like to do moving forward is using the comments from the board and from the public, and also what Dr. Pacheco-Warner was mentioning, was really partner with Dr. Pacheco-Warner, Chair Randolph there at CARB, as well as their executive officer, Dr. Cliff, to really make sure that the CARB board is fully educated, empowered to move forward with good policy that takes into account the real efforts and opportunities that are here in the region, and don't move forward without that full knowledge. So we're definitely working on that and thinking about ways to continue to empower their board to be as effective as they possibly can be on that front. Wanted to mention a couple of other quick things. Dr. Pacheco-Warner and I attended a meeting in July. I just wanted to highlight that for the record. July 8th through the 10th, we were at the SEEB meeting, which is, I think, the California Council for Economic and Environmental Balance, I think is what the SEEB stands for. And Tom Jordan and Ryan Hayashi here, staff, that we all played different roles on different panels and talking actually about a lot of different air quality, environmental policy issues. It's actually quite a big forum. Legislators and others are part of that as well. So wanted to just note that we were all there, and Dr. Pacheco-Warner was a very a great participant in that, just in terms of the feedback that from my perspective, she provided on some of the big issues that are going on, the infrastructure challenges, some other issues. We're also just wanted to note, we're working on some pretty intense federal advocacy to build on some of the prior comments in the presentation to bring our fair share of resources to the region. We'll be traveling, a few of our board members, as well as myself and a couple of staff, to DC in September as part of the Valley of Voice trip to advocate for our fair share of funding. we very strongly feel the federal government needs to step up with more resources. We saw a recent example of where, despite all these new funds that you keep hearing about, we weren't picked actually for a recent project that we were advocating for years to actually support our various, in that case, we called it the Climate Smart, the San Joaquin Valley Climate Smart Agricultural Project. And just for names, Dr. Sheriff, was not funded under that program. And so we're actually just embedding that. And, it was a great proposal. It was a political decision from our perspective. And that, it's just really not acceptable that when we have the biggest challenges anywhere in the country, you have an industry who's willing to work with you on a variety of different measures in that case to not be funded, is really not acceptable. The fix to that is to fund our initiatives. So we're going to be in September looking for answers and looking for funding, and just wanted to thank the board members in advance. There's 3 board members that are going to be a part of that. Chair Chiesa, Mayor Preciado, and Council Member Escutia Brayton are going to be a part of that trip. Just a reminder that the board study session is set for Wednesday, November 13th and 14th in downtown Visalia, with more details to come on that. Back to school season is here, so you're going to see a lot of our ads and commercials around the valley. And I just want to thank the board members for continuing to help us with that. And just, thank all the board members for just all the ongoing work that you do in support of our clean air mission.
Any questions of Samir? No questions?
Quick
Yes.
question, Chair. How much funding was the Air District awarded or allocated in the clean air bond, the climate bond that was approved? Did we receive anything out of that clean air bond?
We're still looking at that. So the bond is going to be on the ballot here in November. So it qualified basically to be on the ballot. So it's not yet, passed the climate bond. We're looking at that. There are a few pieces of it that may be, I would say, directly connected to some of the different initiatives that are going on here. For example, some of like the chipping type programs, maybe under healthy soils, has some sort of relationship to some of the things that we're doing with the phase out of open burning. There's some water management things that have probably some air quality potential benefits. There were key things that we've been communicating for some time that could have been and maybe could have been included that are not included. Things like the farmer program are not included in the bond. So it's kind of hard to tell. It is some pretty, I think part of it is probably going to come down to implementation as well in terms of what state agencies do with some of the funding. And that's something that certainly if the bond were to pass, we'd want to communicate and make sure that as much of it comes to the valley as possible, and as much of it comes to the valley for things that actually assist us with our air quality issues.
I just wanted to clarify that we do have a quorum for next week for the meeting that's here.
So what day's the circus in town?
What day is the what day is the carb hearing?
The circus.
It's August 22nd, which is a week from today. Here and it's also live streamed, I believe, but it's VTC'd basically here at the Fresno office. And I believe there's going to be, sounds like there's probably going to be quite a few participants just based on indications that we've heard from CARB.
On to item 14, governing board members. Any comments?
Yes.
Yes.
Just a heads up, September on the 19th, I know 4 of the counties will be involved in the RCRC conference, so I don't know if you're going, Bobby or Rusty or anything, but we will be, so just a heads up.
Okay. Member Pereira.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Member Escutia Brayton had to leave for another meeting, but asked me to give a report on her behalf. That she wanted to thank the district for the Clean Alternatives of Fireworks grant. She attended and spoke at an event July 4th where over 5,000 people enjoyed an amazing drone show. The small nonprofit South Merced Business United did the program, and it really was a great event, and they look forward to applying next year.
If there's a program
If there's a
next year.
next year.
Yeah, I already said that. Remember when?
Yes, I want to echo those thanks. The city of Visalia had a drone show for 4th of July or 3rd of July. And it was so well attended, and we probably had 15 food trucks out there, and most of them ran out of food. There were so many people there. It was fantastic. We have some local sponsors that are so excited about the attendance that will apply if there's grant money, but I think we'll be able to fund it on our own as well. So, yeah. And I want to thank Samir, Jamie, and Emily for coming down to Visalia yesterday and presenting to my Rotary Club. It was very enlightening. I had couple of big farmers there, and they actually emailed me afterwards and said, thank you for bringing that to the Valley. So appreciate that.
Thank you. Member Preciado.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try to be brief. Just also want to say that the city of Avenal also benefited from 2 grants. A Rotary Club got one, and the city of Avenal with the drone shows. I think we did really good. The 2 events, actually, the community really supported and liked it because, as you can see, the reduction of pollution, smoke, and especially also for the animals that get so scared. So I think the communities will continue to support those events and hopefully slowly getting away from the high pollution fireworks. The other comment I would like to say is we talk about education. I also believe that's the key. I believe funding is number 1 because without any funding, all these projects reducing pollution will not come into fruition. But I think education goes a long ways too, because even though looking at the charts and knowing what the San Joaquin Valley has done, including the 8 counties in cities and communities, is not much appreciated. I did heard some of the comments for the hearing, and they were very, very negative. And I think that's what it lacks. It lacks community education to understand where the funding has gone and what benefit has done to the whole Central Valley, reducing pollution, going over 19%. I think that's incredible. More needs to be done, like everybody knows, but it's gonna take time and funding and support from cities, counties, and upper elected officials. The third comment I would like to say is the meeting. I attended the meeting that Mr. Acuna was mentioning in Long Beach on Tuesday, and over 220 agencies that includes unions, truckers, businesses, farmers and communities, mayors, and also elected officials that support the movement to actually get the infrastructure before policymakers can vision reducing, getting to the net zero emission in so short time is impossible. And I think that shows a lot of collaboration, and it's a domino effect that will start at the fields, and it will go to the trucking company, it will go to the business, it will go to the warehouses, it will go to the ports. I mean, everybody's getting collaborating together. The port of Oakland, Stockton, Long Beach, LA. I think it's very important to see that just the port of LA in Long Beach, I believe they hire like 700,000 employees. So it is huge demand for labor. And can you just imagine what's going to happen if trying to implement all those regulations by the time frame, it's impossible to get it done. But I just want to say collaboration, and that's what we need here, educating our communities, our counties, and I think we can do better that way so everybody understand the vision and the goal that the Air District has. Thank you.
All right, I see no more comments. And if there's nothing else for the good of the order, this meeting is adjourned at